with 3 minutes of delay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us to our November meeting. It's always good to see people in this room following the county board meetings month after month. Since October, one can barely keep up with everything that's happened. I want to take a minute to reflect with if my colleagues allow that. This past month, I want to reflect first of all on the deep pain and the anxiety that the federal shutdown has caused to tens of thousands of Arlingtonians, not only federal workers, but literally everybody. And it's extremely painful to see how a reckless president and a Congress that has surrendered its constitutional duties, a Congress majority, how they can take our nation hostage and for the only reason to make the rich richer and at the expense of the 95% of all of us. So like all hostage takings, it ended painfully. I'm relieved to see that these families are getting their paychecks back, that many got their jobs back because they have been rift in between. But I'm mindful that tens of thousands are never going to see compensation for the lost income. And everybody will be seeing their insurance premiums and the general cost of living on a runaway train, which is a very big challenge for our community. My second reflection is on the second thing that happened between October and now, which is a clear message that Arlington and Virginia voters sent across the river. Democracy is alive and kicking. When people go to vote, they get democracy back. And I'm more than excited to see how Abigail Spanberger, our governor-elect, is already standing up for and fighting for all Virginians. Some may interpret what I just said a partisan statement. It may be. But I cannot describe how much of a relief it is to go from a place where the Attorney General of our Commonwealth couldn't find the stamina to join the lawsuit to get SNAP benefits for the Congress appropriated emergency funding from SNAP benefits for starving Virginians, and the difference in administration that actually cares and fights for us. So that's very good news for Arlington and for the entire Commonwealth. So, and thanking my colleagues for indulging with me, but this was a very emotional month for me, and I believe for many of our fellow residents. So welcome to the November 15th County Board meeting. I'm Board Chair Takis Karantonis, and my colleagues, I'm joined here by my colleagues, Vice Chair Matt Ferranti, Susan Cancan, and J.D. Spain, and you may have noticed that we miss our colleague, Maureen Coffey. She cannot join us today due to her grandmother's passing yesterday morning. Our thoughts are with her, and we support her to be with her family today. Thank you for joining us today. And before we begin, let me just take a moment to highlight a few resources. We put it always at the beginning of our meetings that are available from the county for members of our community in need. First of all, food assistance. Mr. Clerk, do I have the slide for that? Yes. They are also printed outside, so you can read and divulge and distribute them among your networks. The SNAP is back. The USDA has authorized states to issue SNAP benefits for November, following the federal guidance. The Virginia Department of Social Services also expects to issue 65% of the typical month SNAP benefits to eligible households by 2 days before. That was the status as of November 13. The Virginia Emergency Nutrition Assistance Funds, which the governor has released to help supplement the SNAP benefits that until a few days before were still not paid out. They are already on EBT cards. They will remain available for up to 90 days. But in November, there will be no additional funds issued since the SNAP is now the federal SNAP benefits are now back, and it will take a little bit until the system gets back stabilized. I know that this is extremely stressful to talk about administrative issues with people who are lining up on our at our food banks right now, but we are trying our very, very best so that no family is going to be hungry in Arlington. The next slide, please. This is where food assistance, this is a food assistance map. It's available online. It tells you where the food pantries are, where the school meals, and where even prepared meals, the IPS, our Arlington Public School System, has stepped up and serving prepared warm meals to people who need them, and where discount groceries are. So this is already a resource that everybody can use, and it's important to see because a lot of times, even in our own neighborhoods, those who don't have the problem, they may not be aware of where the resources are. So it's a good thing for everybody to access these resources and to help people in need. Next one. For federal workers, the predicaments of whom are continuing, county offers a lot of support, resume assistance for pivoting after having lost the federal job, mental health support, which is not less important, food security resources, housing resources, extremely important right now, health insurance resources, and we had a vast array of shutdown resources. We're probably going to keep up the vigilance on that because we are not really out of the woods. For now, we may be, but not really since the continuing resolution goes until January. The next one, please, the next slide. And our immigrant community and refugee community continues to be under enormous pressure. Actually, the pressure has never is increasing by the day, and you just need to read the news about that. Know your rights. There are online resources for that. Also, referrals to organizations who are supporting immigrant and refugee communities right now with practical and legal advice, food resources, housing and eviction resources, English classes. I'm always going, and citizen classes. I'm always going to say we have a lot of fellow residents who qualify for applying for U.S. citizenship. Please encourage them to do that. They are extremely intimidated by everything that they see around and they hear around every day. It is extremely important to get the encouragement from all of us to actually engage in the process and become U.S. citizens. The sooner, the better. That's the third plan. And now I will be passing the baton of announcements, important community announcements, to my colleague, Ms. Cunningham, to tell us a little bit about a deadline that's coming up this Sunday.
Great. I think as the clerk pulls the slide up, we just wanted to make sure that everyone in the community has heard about the input requests for the potential comprehensive plan update. So this is the QR code. If you go to the Arlington County website and just type in comprehensive plan, you'll find it as well. But the online survey, the in-person and virtual inputs have concluded, but the online survey concludes tomorrow. So I see several people in the audience here who've been involved already, so thank you. But we do want to make sure that we get everyone's thoughts before we begin digesting them. So just wanted to alert that, and if you could let your neighbors and civic associations and tenant groups know, then that would be terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cunningham. This is an important process. I understand that a lot of people may be extremely busy or extremely impacted by a ton of other things. But in Arlington, we still think about our community, about how to shape our community in the future. We will really welcome your attention to the comprehensive plan engagement process and to the update discussion that we have right now in our community. We'll continue. So, some general announcements now on procedure for our public comment section of the meeting. For in-person speakers, the podium is here. The podium height can be adjusted by using up and down arrows on the right. If you're submitting documents as part of your testimony, please hand them to Mr. Kushner, our clerk, along with your name and a contact information book, because we are not only usually but dutifully respond and follow up on issues that you bring before us. For remote speakers, please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off until you're called on to speak. We have a Spanish language interpreter who is joining us virtually for the public comment portion of this meeting. Is she or he?
Apologies. We have virtual interpretation online, and I am happy to assist, or Mr. Davis or Mr. Valenzuela, Garcia Valenzuela up front are able to assist.
Okay. I can also help out. If you require assistance with interpretation, you heard Mr. Kushner, occasionally you may see us get up and stretch our legs. However, there are speakers and monitors in the back so that we continue to see and hear the meeting. So with that, we will now begin with the public comment. The regular reminder from me is that this section of the meeting is reserved, public comment is reserved for topics that are not related to recent or upcoming public hearings. To help ensure fairness and efficiency, we have a one speaker per topic rule. If you're here with a coordinated group, we ask you to please designate one representative to speak on that topic, and that representative can note that there are others present who share our views. Our goal is to hear a broad range of perspectives while keeping the regular meeting on schedule. I would like to share more detailed input on or engage in a deeper discussion with us. We encourage you, if you want to do that, we encourage you to attend an Open Door Monday session or email us at countyboard, one word, at arlingtonva.us. There is a ton more information on how to reach us on our website. We also welcome the support for our speakers that may come from the floor, but we would like to ask you to use the American Sign Language sign for applause instead of clapping. The clerk will call two speakers at a time, and to help us moving, please come to the front and be ready to speak when your name is called. So, Mr. Kushner, please call the first two speakers.
Yes, of course. Our first speaker is Ms. Audrey Clement, followed by Mr. Roger Disred.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Okay. Welcome, members of the board and the county manager. I'm Audrey Clement from Westover. On the post-election front, the good news is that out of about 625 Clement signs deployed throughout the county, 75% were recovered after the election. With the notable exception of the Garfield Apartments precinct in Clarendon, where political signs are always confiscated, the number of signs reclaimed after the polls closed increased dramatically. The bad news is that by Saturday, November the 8th, Pentagon City medians were wiped clean of Clement signs, which confiscation I attribute to the good offices of ACDC operatives. More troubling were Spanberger signs posted at the polls throughout the county on Election Day, far in excess of the legal limit of 2 per poll. At Westover, for example, I photographed no less than 14 Spanberger signs. At Oak Ridge Elementary, I saw a dozen Spanberger signs. This situation illustrates graphically the mantra of both major parties, which is that the law applies to thee, not me. Don't get me wrong. I understand the anger of blue ballot voters at the Trump administration for the firing and furlough of thousands of county residents. In the absence of due process, these terminations were patently illegal. Yet when I see ACDC operatives running roughshod over the county's election ordinance, my confidence in the Democrats sinks to new lows. Indeed, in anticipation of the 2026 midterms, Democrats and Republicans are locked in a struggle to see who can produce the most gerrymandered congressional districts. In Virginia, a constitutionally mandated bipartisan redistricting commission is all but a dead letter after passage of a Democrat-sponsored redistricting bill in October. This race to the bottom by the dominant parties has produced a lawless state that relegates dissenters to perpetual victimhood. Thank you.
Dr. Clement, thank you for your testimony. The next speaker, please.
Yes, of course. Our next speaker is Roger Disred, followed by Sisay Sindek.
Hello, thank you for taking your time to hear my case. I recently had my automobile towed in Arlington County. This is the second time it's been towed over the course of about 5 years. Both times it was damaged. One doesn't have to take much time to see that the tow companies are yanking cars around, pulling them at excessive speeds. I went to pick up my vehicle. They came and grabbed it, yanked it out of the lot, and they did damage to it. Both times, my vehicle has been towed in Arlington County, have resulted in damage. When I go to get that fixed with photographs before and after and proof, these companies drag their feet and won't call back. Specifically, most recently was Advanced Towing. They pulled my vehicle. They finally agreed to fix the damage incurred by their towing. And actually, when they picked it up last week, the tow truck driver showed me how close it is, about a half an inch, when they tow my specific model, Volkswagen Jetta, will have the tendency to break the oil pan if they're not, or put a hole in the oil pan if they're not careful. They're not being careful. The other issue with the tow company, Arlington County Police Department has determined that they owe me for the tow, and it was an unlawful tow, not in accordance with city ordinance for multiple factors, but one was the lack of responding to them or to me when I was asking, is the vehicle there? They're required to inform and show pictures of the tow before and during after the tow. For an example, put
Sir,
a sticker up.
thank you.
Mr.
Please
Disred, your
conclude.
time has elapsed.
Say again.
Your time has elapsed, Mr. Disred. Conclude.
Okay. Thank you for the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Disred.
And our next
The
speaker
next
is...
speaker, please.
Yeah, of course. Our next speaker is Sisay Sindek, followed by Sandra Beltran.
Is it online or is
I have Ms. Sindek here noted in person. We can circle back if she's not with us.
we can go to the next speaker?
Yes, our next speaker is Sandra Beltran, followed by Tia Alfred.
Ms. Beltran. Good morning. Buenos días.
And we'll offer additional time for interpretation.
If you can make sure the microphone is on.
Is that
Yeah,
on?
red light, you're good.
It is on?
And I'll just say I am Ms. Beltran's attorney, Larissa Zare, Legal Aid Justice Center. I'll be able to interpret afterwards if the board would like that.
That's okay, but just make sure that the microphone is on because I'm not so sure that it is. The red light on the base of this microphone, oh, it's okay, good.
Gracias al Charis Cardantonis. Miembros y miembros de la Junta del Condado, mi nombre es Sandra Beltrán y yo vivo en la 1226 South Thomas Street, Arlington, Virginia 22204. Me presento hoy para llamar su atención a los incrementos de renta en barcos, apartamentos, que no siguen el acuerdo entre la Junta del Condado de Arlington y el dueño del barco, Jair Lynch. También me preocupa que Barcro posiblemente esté incrementando la renta de esta forma para otros inquilinos en la propiedad. Decidí hacer el comentario público para resaltar este tema, para ayudar a otras personas que posiblemente no conocen sus derechos o no pueden hablar en público. En los acuerdos con el condado, Barcro Apartamentos acordó que solamente iba a aumentar la renta un 3% al año. Este acuerdo para mí significa que no me preocupo sobre cuánto la renta va a subir al año. Me hace sentir tranquila saber que el incremento va a ser solamente 3%, pero porque no han cumplido con el acuerdo sobre el incremento de 3%, me hace sentir preocupada sobre incrementos en el futuro. En mi primer contrato de arrendamiento con Barcro empezó en julio 2022 y mi renta fue $1,630. Cuando Barcro renovó mi contrato en julio 2023, indicaron en el contrato que la renta sería $1,729. Eso era un aumento de 6% en la renta, que no concuerda con el acuerdo con el condado. El plan de financiamiento para vivienda afordable, Barcro, no
Ms.
me...
Beltrán, si puede concluir por tiempo. No se preocupe que tenemos aquí el testimonio completo.
Respetuosamente estoy solicitando que la Junta del Condado y su equipo llamen la atención a este asunto con Barcro Apartamentos y les requiero que me ajunten mi renta al monto correcto para mí y para cualquier otro inquilino que está en la misma situación. Gracias por su apoyo y atención.
Gracias, Ms. Beltrán. You can translate it if it can be within the 2 minutes.
Sure. And also, if you'd like to give a written copy, if you didn't get to
Yeah.
read parts of it.
We did provide a written copy to the board just a few minutes ago. Thank you.
Right.
I'll translate. Thank you, Chair Carantonis and members of the county board. My name is Sandra Beltran. I live at 1226 South Thomas Street, Arlington, Virginia. Speaking today to bring your attention to increases in rents at Barcroft Apartments that do not follow the agreement between the county board and Jair Lynch. I'm also concerned that Barcroft may be increasing rents in this way for other tenants of the property. I decided to give public comment to raise this issue so that I can help other tenants who may not know their rights or be able to speak in public. In the agreements with the county, Barcroft Apartments agreed to only increase the rent 3% per year. That agreement means that I'm not worried about how much the rent will go up next year. It makes me feel at ease to know that the increase will only be 3%. Because they haven't followed the agreement about the 3% increase, that makes me worried about future increases. In my first lease at Barcroft Apartments, which began in July 2022, my rent was $1,630. When Barcroft renewed my lease in July 2023, they put the rent as $1,729 per month. This was a 6% increase in the rent, which goes against the agreement with the county, the Affordable Housing Financing Plan. Barcroft didn't start to charge me that increase until the last 2 months of my lease. But because the rent increased 6% on my lease, when I renewed my lease again, my rent increase snowballed. In my third lease, Barcroft charged me an increase of 3%. Even though that was only for 3%, it compounded on the prior 6% increase. The same thing happened with my fourth lease. To make sure Barcroft Apartments is not increasing the rent over the 3% for other tenants like me, I'm respectfully asking for the county board and county staff to raise this issue with Barcroft Apartments and require them to reset my rent to the correct amount for me and anyone else who has the same situation. Thank you for your support and attention.
Thank you. So the next speaker, please.
Yes, our next speaker is Tia Alfred, followed by Larissa Zaire.
Ms. Alfred, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Tia Alfred, and I wear several hats here in Arlington. I was told I had to combine two different organizations today, so I'm going to give it a try. On behalf of a collective of 20-plus civic associations, I'm here to talk about protecting balance in Arlington's redevelopment. I'm asking for a collaborative balance, one that centers environmental stewardship, respects long-term residents, and still makes room for new families to thrive. That balance is the purpose of our comprehensive plan, all 12 elements, and it must be honored consistently, not selectively. To get there, I respectfully suggest these actions. Establish a redevelopment and preservation working group to actually complete the lot coverage study and address tree preservation, design, and neighborhood character. Create a green density compact so that any redevelopment expanding lot coverage contributes to sustainability, and launch a livability balance index, a public dashboard tracking affordability, environmental health, and community well-being. These steps will help rebuild trust and ensure redevelopment works for the entire county. And as the Vice President of the NAACP, I stand here because Arlington is at a crossroads. We again call on the county leadership to prioritize ending housing discrimination in Arlington County, especially regarding adverse treatment and discrimination on the use of housing choice vouchers. The NAACP is calling for urgent action. Amend the Human Rights Ordinance to align fully with the Federal Fair Housing Act and Virginia Fair Housing Law as outlined in our December 2024 letter. Work with HUD to become a Fair Housing Assistance Program participant, and prioritize fair housing enforcement and education in the Office of Human Rights. Arlington has a real opportunity to lead the region by ending housing discrimination. The ask and expectation is for Arlington County to meet this moment with urgency and commitment to both topics, including do the lot coverage study as promised. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alfred. The next speaker, please.
Yes, of course. Our next speaker is Larissa Zaire, followed by Asim.
Ms. Zaire. Good morning again.
This comment's on my behalf. And so thank you, Chair Carantonis and members of the board. My name is Larissa Zaire with Legal Aid Justice Center. I'm here today to talk about anti-rent gouging policy as a tenant protection here in Arlington. All Arlingtonian families, no matter their race, income, or neighborhood, deserve to be able to afford a future in their communities. But renters in Arlington cannot sustain severe and compounding rent increases that far outpace inflation and wage gains. Arlington, as you know, has the 5th highest median rent among large urban areas in the entire US. That looks like a median of $3,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. I regularly defend renters in eviction cases in Arlington. And what I hear most from my clients who live here is that they cannot afford the rent increases as their apartments fall into worse disrepair. Anti-rent gouging policies are an immediate solution to this problem. This critical tool empowers local governments like your own to mitigate evictions and prevent displacement by limiting yearly rent increases. If enabling legislation is passed in the General Assembly, localities can then decide if and how this policy would fit their housing market. It's cost effective. These measures preserve affordable housing at a far more wider scale than subsidizing construction or funding vouchers. And crucially, these protections work in parallel with efforts to increase housing supply by ensuring that tenants stay in their communities while more supply comes online in the medium and long term. Empirical evidence of long-term similar policies in New Jersey and Washington, D.C. have shown no negative impact on supply where new supply is exempted. Finally, these protections guarantee landlords a fair return on investment by allowing them an exemption from rent increase limits based on their increased operating costs. Landlords who do right by their tenants will be able to upkeep their property and continue to make a reasonable profit. Please consider supporting these policies to make sure that renters can continue to stay and thrive in Arlington. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zaire.
Our next speaker.
The next speaker.
Yes, of course. Next speaker is Asim Rawoot, followed by Ms. Jean Clarkson.
Good morning.
All right. Well, I got some slides again.
You do. A moment.
Right. So I'm blasting this graphic again because we can't trust your boy Scott McCaffrey to report on this in an honest way. Last month, I pointed out your selective discriminatory enforcement of your precious one speaker per topic rule at the July board meeting. And what did you do? You doubled down on it. Next slide. At the October board meeting, Takis pushed back against 2 of our speakers and let 3 speakers smear us as anti-Semitic Hamas Islamic Jihad terrorists. In the same meeting, we heard how hate speech and Islamophobia would not be tolerated. It's funny how that works. So what's the point of all of this? Next slide. Toni Morrison reminds us that the function of racism is distraction. So to that I say, nice try, Takis. Masterful gambit. However, we remain focused on the work of detaching Arlington from genocide and apartheid. Next slide. As Takis tries to deflect and distract us, Arlington has chosen to deepen our ties and complicity in genocide and apartheid over the past year. While Israel cut aid off to Gaza, Arlington was asking for more applications from Israeli weapons manufacturers. While American mercenaries and the IDF gunned down starving children, Arlington was working with VIAB and Glenn Youngkin to bring more Israeli weapons manufacturers. As Israel launched another major offensive, Arlington was channeling more taxpayer dollars to Starburst Systems, a company involved in developing thermobaric bombs, mini nukes as they call it, currently being tested in Gaza. Next slide. Meanwhile, Arlington continues to fall behind other movements across the country. This is nowhere near an exhaustive list. This doesn't include Iowa City, Richmond, California, Northampton, Massachusetts, Portland, Maine, Alameda County, California, Dearborn, Michigan. Next slide. Our focus is disciplined. We remain steadfast in our efforts to end our complicity. We have a teach-in planned for December 14th. We'll follow up individually. Consider this an invitation. We'd love to have you and hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. The next speaker, please.
Yes, our next speaker is Mr.
Good
Gene
morning.
Clarkson, followed by Hiba Kassim.
I will read parts of a November 10th letter that should be in your packets. We, the members of the Nova Catholic community, are writing to you concerning the issues brought before you by Arlington Apartheid Divest. AAD's key issue is Arlington County's economic development support for companies materially involved with Israel's military campaign in Gaza. Nova Catholic Community is a 58-year-old Catholic community in Arlington, and we have long been involved in many Arlington social justice organizations. AAD asked us to sign their letter to the county board. We have chosen instead to write this separate letter. AAD's letter details its reasons for concluding that the State of Israel is guilty of genocide in its military response since the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023. Nova Catholic is also aware that the Special Reporter for Palestine, 2 prominent Israeli human rights groups, and many genocide scholars have come to the same conclusion.
Ma'am, I'm afraid I have to interrupt you. How is your testimony different than the testimony we just heard? It's
We were
one
just
topic per
We were just here to
speaker.
support AAD's comments.
Yeah, I understand that, but we have a one speaker
All
per
right.
topic
Okay,
rule.
I honor that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that, but we have the next speaker, please.
Yes, of course, our next speaker is Hiba Kassim, followed by Jim Parker.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here to speak for the trees, for our streets, for our neighborhoods, and for our future. We need a new model of economic development that puts our communities first. Arlington is experiencing more intense rainfall, yet our stormwater infrastructure remains underfunded, even as FEMA and regional studies identify Arlington as one of the highest risk flood zones in Northern Virginia. The major flood events of 2019 and 2023 showed us exactly what happens when we defer investment. Homes destroyed, roads washed out, and small businesses that never reopened. At the same time, our tree canopy is shrinking. We've seen a significant loss in canopy coverage since 2016, dropping from roughly 40% to about 33%. And as we heard from Ann last month, the Tree Canopy Fund continues to face cuts and delays due to poor decisions made by this board. Trees are one of our strongest defenses against heat, flooding, and polluted air. Yet, you continue to prioritize funding military activity, which directly exacerbates the climate crisis. And I want to say this clearly. Each of you on this board regularly claims to be an environmentalist and a champion for the climate. But you cannot call yourselves climate leaders while cutting tree protections, underfunding stormwater resilience, and expanding economic ties to the war industry. So we have a clear contradiction. Arlington is underfunding resilience while overfunding militarism. Militarism that is directly tied to the genocide unfolding in Gaza, using our tax dollars. The county continues to increase spending connected to the Pentagon footprint, military contractors, and economic development strategies that rely on the war industry, which is one of the world's largest contributors to emissions, toxic pollution, and the climate crisis. This is not sustainable, not environmentally, not morally, not economically. So once again, we ask this body to implement a new model of economic development in Arlington, one that centers community needs, protects our planet, and reduces the harm committed by our tax dollars as outlined on our website, arlingtonapartheiddivest.com. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Jim Parker, followed by Sandra Motley Grant.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You can raise the
Yeah,
podium.
I'm tall, sorry. I'm here representing myself as well as Lyon Park in relation to the 38 trees scheduled for removal, including the gateway tree of Lyon Park between 3rd and 4th Street in Fillmore. The circuit tree maintenance program is well-intentioned but very poorly executed, with no community involvement, no checks and balances, and unelected low-level employees making underinformed permanent decisions that will impair millions in value for the community. The program needs to be immediately halted and completely restructured. Specifically for the gateway tree seen in your photos, the removal of this tree directly impacts both the community as well as my personal home and daily life. It sits in front of my home. My home is the only one that's at risk. It is scheduled for removal. The tree is the reason why we bought this house. It's known as the gateway tree for a reason. The contractor selected by the county, which Mr. Schwartz knows, is not licensed to do business in Arlington County. They don't have a business Arlington. They don't have an Arlington business license. They also probably have some tax implications. And if you pull up their website, they don't have the licenses that they say they do. The county has not done the scientific evaluation required for removal per its own policies. They've only done a They've only done a drive-by visual inspection. The arborist's reasons for removal don't prove instability. When asked if there were alternatives for removal, the direct quote was, "If we prune a limb, the tree may not like it." Frankly, cutting down a tree is certainly worse than pruning a limb. The county is also exposing itself to unnecessary financial and legal risks. Roughly $750,000 is budgeted for removals. Litigation from neighborhoods, including ours, which is a matter of days away, will cost significantly more than hiring the independent arborist. In summary, we're not asking for obstruction, we're asking for reasonable stewardship. Pause removal, conduct an independent evaluation, and see what someone else that isn't hired by the county says. In summary, why fully remove a tree when it could be trimmed and reduce risk, while also avoiding litigation and avoiding conflict
Thank you,
with the
Mr.
community.
Parker. The next speaker, please.
Yes, of course, a moment. Our next speaker is Ms. Sandra Motley Grant, followed by Mr.
morning.
Joshua Hander.
Good morning.
You can actually lower the podium if you want.
Oh, sure. While I'm talking, there will be some slides that would give you some information. My family, our trust, our company needs your help. We have been the victims of women who decided they were going to attack us for our tech company. Women have slandered and used their sexuality similar to how they use their sexuality to take down men like your Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Using breasts and humiliating my breast surgery, verified in my military medical records, these women have used their associates with tracking, trailing, and harassing us every day. I went to a therapist. The therapist informed me that these women were jealous and to ignore them. This has now been 15 years, taking me out because they want technology and willing to do anything to get it. So that you are forewarned, that they promised to use women and children worldwide to humiliate me and the tumor that was removed from my breast because they have nothing else to do with their lives. The value of our assets. According to Bloomberg, Akon, a Hollywood rapper recently arrested in Atlanta, received a $1 billion investment from the Chinese government for his concept of solar energy. He wants to install solar throughout Africa, India, and Brazil. He then received $5 billion more. I congratulated Akon on his achievement. While in the United States, we designed solar energy, and yet we are attacked instead of giving support. Here's the real important portion of our story, that wealthy people, both black and white, would cover
Ms.
up
Grant, if
the
you can
attacks on my
conclude.
family.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate it. There are no further speakers. No, I apologize. There's one final speaker, Mr. Joshua Handler.
Mr. Chair, good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Well, we're here. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I recently attended the NVRC's Housing Symposium, Advance Arlington's event on what it takes to make housing truly affordable in Arlington, the county's affordable housing bus tour, and a housing commission meeting. The first was very pro-growth, while the second two focused on providing real affordable housing to the region's 60% and less AMI populations. Overall, it seems that only cross-subsidization can supply new build affordable housing here. And the region's high cost of land precludes constructing new affordable by-right starter single-family homes. Staff informed the Housing Commission about the 10-year implementation of the Affordable Housing Master Plan here before you. We are well on our way to achieving our goal of 17.7% of rental housing to be for incomes at 60% of AMI or below by 2040. Over the last 10 years, the share has increased from some 9% to almost 13%. If present trends continue, the goal would be attainable in 15 years. These events made clear EHO would not help with an affordable housing unit shortfall. In Arlington, a four-person 60% AMI is some $98,000. EHO would not provide affordable housing for this income level or less. Staff's March 2023 equity analysis concluded that for EHO, as under the status quo, households earning less than $100,000 generally cannot attain housing at R5 to R20 zones. Arlington's housing grants program was also discussed. Almost 1,600 households received these grants, totaling almost $1.2 million a month. Meanwhile, the county has spent almost $1.4 million appealing a lawsuit to keep EHO upzoning, and upzoning that will not help with our affordable housing shortfall. To think that money could have covered the housing grants program for a whole month. The time spent, money wasted, and distraction of the multi-year missing middle EHO debate must frustrate real affordable housing advocates. It's time to drop the EHO appeal and focus our funds on real affordable housing solutions. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Handler. The next speaker, or was that?
There are no further speakers.
Okay. So I will try my very best to respond quickly or swiftly. We will follow up with items that have been brought and need more work. Ms. Clement, thank you for your testimony. I don't believe that you didn't provide any proof for the assertions that you made that somehow your political opponents have removed your signs, etc. We have seen a lot of signs being removed from all sorts of people, mine included. And so we have an active discussion among board members right now to see how to find ways to regulate, the burgeoning signage during the long election periods in the future. So stay tuned for that, because there will be some policy discussions that are coming up. Mr. Disrad, I'm very, very sorry to hear about your dismal towing experience and the damages to your car. We have heard that from many customers, so this is an issue that I would like to refer you to Ms. Stephanie Bello. We have your contact information and we'll get back to you. We want to know every gory detail of that because we are in an active dispute with our towing companies about the quality of service and the consumer protections that they provide or mostly don't. Ms. Beltrán, are you here? ¿Usted aquí? No, she's not, so I will do that in English then. We receive your testimony. We need to talk about that. We need to investigate what exactly has happened there. 3% is indeed the agreed rent increase up to to reach 60% AMI. But I think details matter, and we have to dive deeper into that. So we will refer you to Ms. Bello as well, and we will circle back. We are very attentive to what happens in Barcroft and other places where we invest in affordable housing. We expect all agreements to be our partners to be compliant with the agreements they have, and until now they have been. There were exceptions, but there were oversights or mistakes, etc. If it's something systemic, we want to find it out and to find it and correct it. Ms. Alfred, I'm very sorry that you had to testify on two different topics. The one speaker per topic rule forces us to do that. We will be discussing how to accommodate such testimonies in the future. Thank you for your testimony on the low residential study. I might remind everybody here that this is still an ongoing process. Public testimony and input is requested and received. So we're working on this collectively here. On the NAACP piece, which refers to the very important fair housing enforcement discussion that we have, especially after after the July 2025 this year, testing results that we got. We received a letter by the NAACP in September, early September, that was listing a host of issues that were found in the testing and need to be addressed by our Human Rights Office. We have responded to that, and we will be responding more in detail. This is now the fifth, if I'm not mistaken, the fifth board meeting in a row that we receive a testimony on fair housing infringement, on concern about fair housing enforcement. We do that, we test that, we measure that, but I have no doubt that we have to do better. There is no question about that. So we will be further engaging to that. Ms. Zaire, you couldn't know that we are, later in this meeting, we will be talking about our legislative package. You couldn't see that in there, but we will be talking about anti-rent gouging. Suffice to say that since I joined this board in 2020, average rent in Arlington has increased 27% in 5 years. 5 years, and we are not done yet. Just last year, average rent went up 6%. There are many details to that. I will speak to that when we take it up with our discussion on the legislative package. Mr. Rawood, thank you again for your testimony. I have nothing to add to previous statements and responses to your testimony. It is a First Amendment thing. Our politics may be different, but you can do that. I hope that I'm managing these meetings in a way that is fair to everybody, and it doesn't allow for the intention between the one speaker per topic rule is to make it difficult to crowd out speakers from the general public when there is a strong reason for others to testify on other things that are in the day very important. That doesn't rest importance to your testimony or the sentiment and the issues that you raise. It just allows for space for everybody else to be able to testify. This is, again, not a town hall. For that, we have different spaces and different places. This is here to alert the board on ongoing issues at the beginning of the public meeting. And by the way, I will repeat it again, the process and the rules for this year are set at the beginning of the year, that's in January. So with everything that we experienced this year, we will be discussing this process and these rules at the beginning of the year 2026. Nova Catholic, thank you for coming to testify. I'm very sorry that I had to interrupt you, but it was essentially the same topic. I happen to know your members, and I even accompanied your members on the Hill when you advocated for other things. So thank you for the testimony. We take it under advisement, and we take note. On the issue of FEMA trees and the tree canopy, the funding for the tree canopy fund, and the stormwater management in Arlington. This is a very long conversation. Thank you for bringing that up, and it's an interesting aspect. This is the oldest question, one of the oldest questions in public policy: guns or butter, right? So this is, whether communities, states should be investing more in defense and what you call the military investments, or in peaceful pursuits and necessary infrastructure. In Arlington, we are a local government. We don't do foreign policy. We don't decide the defense budget of the United States. We decide the budget of Arlington County, and our focus is really overwhelmingly on civic infrastructure and on the smart environmental stewardship. This is the rubric under which we do, we started a tree canopy fund, we do stormwater management, and we try to keep Arlingtonians safe from the harms of climate change. The Lion Park issue, Mr. Parker, thank you for bringing this up. I am really intrigued and very interested in hearing what the status is, or if we want to refer you refer the issue to be responded later, Mr. Manager.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, I've already corresponded with Mr. Parker. He submitted his concerns last week to me, and also through the Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline. Responded to him. I think we've addressed all his concerns, perhaps not to his satisfaction, but we've addressed them directly. And his concerns about the circuitry maintenance program, I also wrote back to him on that. I know it's a very difficult thing to see some of these beautiful trees that really are at real risk of failing, having to come down, and it speaks really to the previous inattention we provided, with lack of attention we provided. So more conversations, we've had them with the Civic Association, and the tree maintenance program is something that I think that was long overdue, that I had suggested, the board supported. And I'm also, as I said to Mr. Parker, happy to continue to have conversations with him. I think his main points right now are with the way the business license process is done. So I'm refer that to the Commissioner of the Revenue for further conversation. Okay, thank you. I still remain interested in that, and I think I would be interested to see what exactly happens. Mr. Parker, I have to say I feel your pain. There is a tree exactly next to my house that needs to be taken down right now, and I cannot object more to that, but I have to yield to expert advice on doing that, because otherwise the safety of myself and of my family is at stake. Mr. Grant, Ms. Grant, thank you for your testimony. I'm not so sure that Arlington County has jurisdiction on the issues that you raised. I encourage you to remain in contact with us, and we can take it from there and see what we can do offline. Mr. Handler, thank you for your testimony and for engaging in the housing discussion in Arlington. Many opinions on that, on the ongoing litigation and legal process around the
EHO ordinance, I cannot take a position right now because I'm advised not to do that since it's pending litigation. So that concludes my reactions. Colleagues, I see Vice Chair De Ferranti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just too succinct. The towing issue, I do not believe that Mr. Disred is here, so I'll follow up with an email there. Ms. Zaire, thank you so much for the work you do. I think it is a shared priority of all board members over the coming year. Eviction prevention is a huge, both right moral thing to do, and also fiscally, it's wise. So I have already asked for your email to see if we can set up a chance to just touch base. Mindful that there have been attorneys who have attended the Thursday docket, and that can be helpful as well. And last, and perhaps most powerfully, Ms. Clarkson and those who have joined with, very, very grateful for your aligning. I've read the letter, but I will reread and reconsider. I find it quite persuasive and also respectful of all your colleagues to have shared that. That's not saying anything on any other speaker. I just am grateful that you have shared it and done so in a style that is that seeks to both influence and speak your truth strongly, but also leave space for us to align with the desire to have all people heard and effectively and efficiently. So thank you each for coming today.
Ms. Cunningham.
Excuse me, Ms. Clement, I appreciate your biannual report on political signs. I've looked back at them as we grapple with whether to change our sign ordinance to allow or change the time that they're allowed. So thank you for sharing that. And for everyone, I believe the survey is still open for you to weigh in on your preferences about signs. If it's not, certainly feel free to send information directly to the board. On lot coverage, stormwater, and trees, I would share that those are all vastly intertwined, and I appreciate the differing views that were shared today. It is truly really important that we invest in our stormwater infrastructure as well as preserving our trees. The current low residential study is underway. It is not precisely a lot coverage study, and I know that that's been a concern for many in our community. However, what we are trying to do is consider how to eliminate loopholes, how to simplify, and how to really stay grounded on the question of trees and stormwater as we think about coverage. There's been some concern that buildings were excluded from that study, and that is not correct. Buildings would be included in the impervious area, so it will be up to this board to interpret and consider how far we want to go on that, but there may be more work to do. I just want to say thank you to all of you, though, for continuing to fight for the trees and to fight for stormwater investment. And then finally, on EHO, as the chair said, we can't say too much here, but I would just reiterate three things. One is that the original ruling has implications beyond just this case, and that is part of the rationale for appeal. We are trying to follow the court's somewhat shifting orders over time, and we are closely managing legal fees in this appeals process. So while there's been a $1.4 million investment, it's very, very small ongoing, and our attorney is working hard to manage that. So thank you all.
Mrs. Payne.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. I'll try to be really clear here and succinct, not to be redundant. So to Ms. Alford, who's here representing two different hats, again, thank you for showing up. I think what my colleague Susan Cunningham just stated, there's a lot going on there with low residential study, housing discrimination, fair housing. As the County Board's liaison to the Human Rights Commission, I will tell you that we are looking attentively to a lot of matters as it relates to human rights ordinance. And we have received the letter, and to the 20 some odd organizations that have been involved, we've had very deliberate and continuous contact and communications with all those organizations and their request for us to look at things perhaps differently, and I think is very fruitful. To Mr. Hassim, I think you've been here several times, and thank you for coming here. I think at the root of everything you're talking about, you have done so in the past, deals more with our ethics, and I look forward to having a conversation in the near future, probably with our colleagues here about ethics policy and how that may shape up. To Larissa over at Legal Aid Justice Center, I think at the heart of what you were talking about, and also with the young lady from Barcroft was talking about, gets into rent gouging to a certain extent. And I think if you stick around a little bit longer later on, we're going to talk about some things we're addressing in our upcoming legislative package to the General Assembly to address some of those matters. I am concerned, just as our chair is, about those numbers and how rent has been increased. When I did the numbers here, that looks about 12% in the past 3 years. That's not good. So I'm sure we're going to look into that a bit more. Lastly, to Ms. Jean Clarkson, and thank you for coming with the coalition. I think this is not new. I share that two groups can have different perspectives on an issue. And I would extend myself, I think, as any of my colleagues would, to have conversation after this to talk more about your letter, which at the heart of it, especially on the last paragraph, kind of aligns and asks us to look at solutions and something whereby Arlington for Palestine has been working on. So there's two organizations here and a lot of other additional folks. So thank you for your letter. It is very detailed. With Lion Park, Mr. Jim, I'll be curious to coming over there and seeing that tree and what's going on. I heard what our county manager has stated. We probably haven't done our due diligence on upkeeping of our trees. There's more work to be done. I know in our upcoming legislative package as well, and our chair addressed this in our joint conversation with the delegation a few days ago. We're putting forward some pretty robust ask about tree canopy and environmental issues in the next General Assembly session. But I would love to come out to Lion Park and look at some of those trees. And to Ms. I think this is the last one on trees and environment, Kasim. Thank you. I would love to meet at some point in time about you. I like your areas you talked about as well with environmental policy. So let's link up sometime soon and talk more in detail about the issues you care dearly about. With that being said, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for everyone who's coming out. Look forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. That concludes our public comment segment of the meeting and allows us to proceed with the consent agenda. Mr. Kushner, have there been any items pulled from the published consent agenda?
Yes, we have two items that have been removed. Item number 3, which is the site plan amendment to alter building configurations located at 600 North Glebe and 520 North Tazewell Street. And item number 8 has been removed as well, which is the 23rd Street South and Southeast Street Park.
Thank you. Then, colleagues, if you allow, I will move that the county board adopt the county manager's recommendations for items on the consent agenda, excluding the pulled items, number 3 and number 8. Do I have a second?
Second.
It is seconded by Board Member Spain. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It carries 4-0 unanimously, and that means that the consent agenda passes. The board just voted to approve the consent agenda, which includes minor site plan amendments, use permit requests, ordinance amendments, requests to advertise, and more. These items were put on the consent agenda because they were thought to be non-controversial, but that does not mean that they are not important. So I want to take a few minutes to highlight several items here very briefly. We will hold a public hearing on anything that was pulled, the item 3 and item 8 from this consent agenda. When the board reconvenes for our recessed meeting on Tuesday, November 18th, the public hearing will begin no earlier than 6 p.m. If you want to speak on one or more of the items pulled from today's consent agenda, you can register at our county board's website starting today, or call our office at 703-228-3130 on Monday. So let's move on with the slides. Item number 1, this is an adaptive reuse project, yet another one. Here next door, 1320 North Courthouse Road. This will add 296 residential units to this neighborhood, to the courthouse neighborhood. There will be 270,000 square feet of underutilized office space removed. And this will reduce the vacancy rate in courthouse by 4.5%. Right now, about 1 out of 3 office space square footage, out of 3 square feet of office space are vacant in courthouse. So this will lower the vacancy rate to 26.6%. The next slide, please. Item 10, A and B, is a lot of work and for renovations, use permits for renovations at the Barcroft Apartments, according to the phased renovation plan that we approved months ago. Item 10A allows for the preservation and renovations of the Barcroft Apartments buildings 27 to 31, which are located in sections 3 and 4 of the overall apartment complex. They are actually, if you see the slide, this is the red line, the red outlined area. The impacted residents, of whom there are many, they will be relocated to a comparable on-site unit. Their relocation services are going to be free of charge. 120 days notice will be given to impacted residents, and a tenant relocation plan must be submitted to the Tenant Landlord Commission for review, and the county manager is required before any has to require this and see that before and review that before any renovation can occur. The item 10B amends conditions previously approved by the board for buildings 32 to 34 to address topics of tree conservation and replacement, green building and sustainable design, affordable housing, historic preservation, and future site-wide improvements. I'm happy to see that Barcroft and everything that we invest with our partners there is going forward. Next slide, please. That's an MOU, that's item 14, a memorandum of understanding with Solar United Neighbors. That's between Solar United Neighbors and Arlington County. And Solar United is going to provide outreach, marketing, and program management services under a regional solar co-op. That is linked to our Arlington initiative to rethink energy, who has been partnering with Solar United, who has been a participant with Solar United and the capital area switched together, which is an initiative of the entire capital area since 2015, so for 10 years or more. The program enables to receive a competitive pricing when individuals try to find ways to install rooftop solar. Rooftop solar, if you do it yourself, is a quite messy experience and not always, but it's a messy experience and probably a very expensive experience. It's very good for your money, for your pocket, and also for the success of your project to have partners who really know the market and know how to make it so that one gets the best price for the project they have. Everybody's roof is different, and therefore most of the solutions that people are shopping on the market are bespoke. So therefore, the price variability is huge, and it's a good thing to have advisors on this. This program also provides access to customer service support for what happens after you have installed, and resources to add other systems such as battery storage, help you with setting everything up for EV charging, etc. So this is really good support for those who want to do the right thing and don't want to be bankrupt in the process. Next slide. Item 15 is a memorandum of agreement with the Center for Disease Control Foundation, the CDC Foundation. So since 2021, the CDC Foundation has employed they're paying for a public health analyst who works with Arlington County and the Washington-Baltimore high-intensity drug trafficking area through the Overdose Response Strategic Public Health Safety Partnership. The goals of this partnership are to maintain Arlington's robust opioid response. We have seen a dramatic reduction in overdoses and other parameters, and coordinate the regional opioid response and track drug trends in the ever-changing illicit drug supply, and ensure quick public health response for any new trends. The next slide. So there are two requests to advertise. That's item 23 and 24. The item 23 are GLAP amendments to the for the Jenny Dean Park. They would allow land use actions to implement the phase 2 improvements for the park. This has been part of the plan for Jenny D for quite a while. The Planning Commission's public hearing on this is on December 2nd, and the board hearing will be on, our hearing will be on December 13. Item 24 is a local historic district designation of Happy Nest. This is a home in North Arlington. The Planning Commission public hearing is slated also for December 2nd, and the public hearing date is December 13. This is a very interesting item. I invite everybody to read the board report to that. Next slide, please. Also request to advertise, these are two items again, items 25 and 26. Item 25 is a residential permit parking program amendments that would allow the creation and enforcement of digital or electronic permits. The board public hearing date is December 13. There is, you can see an embedded graphic here that when we asked residents what features would you like to see in the future, and with multiple answers possible, most people, one out of three said, I want to be able to renew my residential parking permit without having to re-enter information and go through a tedious process. So that looks like an improvement. We will discuss it on December 13, and I invite everybody who has dealt with the system to give us feedback on that. Item 26 is a taxi cab. They exist. Fare rate changes. We have the responsibility and jurisdiction to adjust them from time to time. The public hearing to that is also December 13. Next slide, please. Item 28 is we just approved on the Goodwill that's on Glebe and Route 50. We approved several Affordable Housing Investment Fund loan documents. This is a complex, always with affordable housing, we have a very complex system of financing, multi-layered. So we approved, we made the legal, we finished the legal work on our side to facilitate the construction and financing of the Goodwill redevelopment, which includes 128 new committed affordable units, as I said already. Since May, the total redevelopment budget has increased by $3.1 million for Goodwill 9 and Goodwill 4 combined. These are two parts of the building. Approval of these documents allows the county and our affordable housing partner, AHC, and the additional financing part is to work toward towards a construction that closes in December 2025. So the completion would be 3 years later or 2.5 years later, approximately in early 2028. Thank you. The next one, I think it's the last one. Yes, excellent. So that concludes my comments on the consent agenda. I don't know if colleagues want to comment on anything in particular of that. Thank you for that. And then this is now the moment to move over to our regular agenda for today. Mr. Clerk, what is our first item on the docket?
Sorry about that. Our first item for today is item number 31, the adoption of the 2026 State General Assembly package. And as a reminder to folks, the public hearing on this item concluded at our October meeting, and the discussion is now at the board.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, the board concluded its public hearing for the legislative package at our October meeting and has subsequently held a work session with our General Assembly delegation to further discuss and refine our priorities for the 2026 legislative session. Today, what we do here is we will hear a presentation from the county manager's office, and it's an opportunity for the board to finalize the package prior to taking any action on it. Mr. Manager.
Yes, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian Esty, who has a brief slide presentation. Mr. Esty.
Thank you, and welcome in this role, Mr. Este. I jumped the gun on purpose just to congratulate you for being our legislative assistant and representative.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Karantonis. So as was mentioned, we presented a draft version of this at the October meeting. What I will spend most of my time, my very brief time, is highlighting the changes we have made since then. Next slide. So as you can see, several items here, we made phrasing adjustments. They don't change the core essence of the items. It's just a little bit of wordsmithing. Next, we had added language to, and this is a new one that you all have only slightly seen. We did make a tweak to our affordable housing initiative to make clear what was sort of always our intention, which was that we were asking for the ability to work on affordable set-asides through a local collaborative process that incorporates public input and interested party input. Additionally, we on the issue of support for folks impacted by federal actions, this sort of lived in a lot of places in the package, but we added a legislative position to really drive home that we want to be doing whatever we can to assist workers, businesses, and organizations affected by those cuts. Next slide. We added under our environment section a position affirming our support for promoting energy affordability, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. Additionally, we added a legislative position in support of campaign finance reform. We broadened our position on tenants' rights and sort of renamed it to protect tenants, and we've included phrasing about keeping housing costs in check, which we will be, as Board Member Spain highlighted, will be adding an additional tweak to that as well, which I'll let him discuss at the proper moment. We added in a position that I think we'd all agree shouldn't have to be said, but we are going to say it anyway, expressing our support for protecting the right to vote. And then finally, we added a bit to our portion discussing law enforcement and immigration about our desire to push told federal agents to the same high standard that we hold our local law enforcement in terms of transparency and accountability. So with that, I would just highlight a couple of things based on the public comment that I think people will be interested in, and then I will toss it over to the board. As was noted, And I mentioned earlier, one of our key priorities is going to be getting another tool for the toolbox to increase our affordable housing. Additionally, on tree canopy, for those of you who saw the work session, Delegate Hope's exact words were that his bill from last year, or his bill this year, which we will be working with him on, will be much more robust than last year, which is music to our ears because, again, it's a high priority for the county. So with that, I would hand it back to the board for any further questions and tweaks as we've discussed.
So thank you, Mr. Este, and thank you for the very thorough work that you and since our colleague Maureen Coffey cannot join us today, I want to just mention how much work she has put into working on this. She is our liaison for legislative affairs, and together with Ms. Este and basically the entirety of all departments and the county manager's office, they really surveyed broad constituencies, internal and external, to create a packet that is flexible, is open enough to allow us to show our values and at the same time be flexible to the ever-shifting legislative solutions that come up in every legislative assembly session. I'm still mesmerized by the fact that the number of bills that are coming in on any given year is in the thousands, like 3,000 or so. This is about that. I heard that number being handled this year as well. So the way municipalities and local jurisdictions position themselves is to be always careful in how they not to box themselves in, but to have enough wiggle room to work under categories that can work with one type of legislation or a little bit more modified type of legislation or even a further modified type of legislation. At the end of accounts, we want to have good results and move forward based on our general values and the philosophy, the general philosophy of our legislative packet that is stated at the beginning of the packet very nicely. Colleagues, are there any comments or is there even a motion or a discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and again, I echo all of what you stated. Back from Brian, congratulations on your assignment to this role, and what a great job you have done over the past couple months. And to our colleague who's not with us today, Maureen Coffey, who also has done just as well. And to all my colleagues on the board, I mean, this was definitely a team effort that really came to conclusion when we met with the delegation last week in joint conversation, which was also quite well. There is one area whereby we've been asked to take another look at, and I think that's a part on G3 of our legislative package, if we can pull that up. Can we pull that up?
And I apologize, you're looking for the package or the alternative language?
That is it, the package. You can just go down to page, I think it's 3. This is the draft, G3. Yeah, right, you can go back up, G3 up. So we've heard from folks about the current way it's written as it relates to protecting tenant rights, and was asked, and we've received a number of emails and calls from critical stakeholders in our community, and we will say that putting an amendment here in our legislative package to support anti-rent gouging legislation is a very cost-effective tool. We realize that, and I think it'll be fruitful and beneficial for us to at least not just signal that Arlington supports this measure, but I have a proposed amendment that I would like to read, which will address Section 3, and it reads as such. I move that the county board amend the county's legislative position to protect tenant rights in the proposed 2026 General Assembly legislative package by replacing the current language with the following. And again, this is G3. Strengthen tenant rights by providing additional recourse, including local enforcement for inadequate health and safety conditions and access to legal resources during eviction proceedings. Support measures to keep housing costs affordable, including anti-rent gouging protections.
I'll second it.
So this is now a motion that is a motion on the on the.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And it's already seconded by Vice Chair DeFerranti.
For clarity, I think the clerk is still trying to get in.
Yes. Can we see?
Yeah, it'd be great to see it up on the.
Yeah. Let's see the. Let's see
I
the
did
full.
I could
I thought
use.
they passed this around.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if
There it is.
Okay. I move that the county board amend the county boards. Fine. So if I understand you correctly, Mr. Spain and Vice Chair Ferranti, you are moving to you are. I want to be procedurally correct. The motion is the main motion is to which hasn't been made yet is to accept the package to adopt the 2026 General Assembly legislative package with this amendment.
With this amendment.
Right? So to state it correctly.
I just want to make sure legally.
You move that the county board finalizes and adopts the 2026 General Assembly legislative package, including the language proposed by you under G3.
We may want to run that by our lawyer.
So the motion on the table is to amend the language first. You would vote on that.
Okay.
And once it is
so
amended, you would
let's
move to adopt
let's do
as
that.
amended.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I always ask because I want to be on a safe space. So any, Mr. Spain, to your motion, any further comment?
No additional concerns. I think it is critically important that we not just signal in this case about anti-rent gouging legislation, any that may come up, but that we are fully supportive. We've heard some talk earlier today about issues that may be going on, but still yet I think there's, a lot of work we can do in this area at the local level and helping families remain in their homes and making sure that we have housing supply and all those great things and preventing extreme rent increases. So, this rent gouging protection is something we should have in our legislative package because this is what this is what a lot of the community wants to see. And I think it's a good move for us and for all the right reasons.
That's great. Any other comments on this? Mr. DeFerranti?
No, I might have comments on once we amend. I'm good with moving forward.
Okay. I'm also good with this. Ms. Cunningham, so let's take a vote then. All in favor of the proposed amended language under G3 of our legislative packet for 2026, the motion by Board Member Spain and seconded by Vice Chair DeFerranti, please say aye.
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 It passes unanimously. Mr. Spain, did I hear you? Aye?
Oh, yeah, I said aye.
Yes. So
I made the motion.
it passes unanimously. So then we have space now. We have it's an opportunity to make the motion to adopt the 2026 General Assembly legislative packet as amended.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded, moved by Board Member Cunningham and seconded by Vice Chair DeFerranti. Ms. Cunningham, any comments on your motion?
I had one question on the amendment we just did, which was quick and had not quite a lot of background. Is there a reason we're capitalizing anti-rent gouging?
None that I have.
Is there a reason we're capitalizing? No, I think it's for grammatically you can make it lowercase or you can leave it a. I guess it's a matter of preference. If you're going to do that, you need to lowercase g. So if that's grammatically correct.
Yeah, I think it just, I was wondering if it was referring to a specific language. Often when it's capitalized, it's something specific. So do we need to remove it for my grammatical needs?
What about unanimous consent?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then further speaking to my motion, we have had a fast and furious work to put this together, and I really appreciate our staff and board liaisons' work to shift our package. You'll see if you compare this to last year, it's really a more strategic package that gives room for supporting through the session, which will also be fast and furious, supporting things that are important to Arlington values and making sure we get to several key initiatives. I also thank our delegation for joining us on Thursday. We had a really good conversation there, and I think that we are all very focused on affordability, on specific supports for safety net and federal workers, and finally getting to some tree changes that seem really, really obvious to us, but have been hard to get through, that would allow us to require higher tree canopy locally. And I think I will leave it. One other thing is the affordable housing flexibility. I think throughout my time on the board, at least, community members have been thoughtfully requesting that our site plan requirements include more affordable housing, whether on site or off, instead of the payment to AF always being the choice that a developer makes. And so getting to that requires more flexibility for us to set that payment amount so that the choices are equal. So excited to see that moving forward as a priority as well.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mr. Flifranti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, thank you to Mr. Spain and the advocates, including Mr. Macbeth and others, who have brought rent gouging back to our consciousness. There was a Washington Post article on a specific type of software about 3 months ago that is being used, I believe, in ways that are not consistent with that really raise serious concerns. We reached out to a couple of other localities. Putting this in is going to, I believe, could provide the context to help us with this. I'm not in a space to guarantee that we will get progress, but I think it is appropriate, fully appropriate in this context to add this language. Second, my wife just had our second child, and I did not knock doors the way WOFA knocked doors. 13 new delegates. 13 new delegates, of whom at least 7, and I think 9 or 10, are women. It is past time. We have one party that is reasonable, another party that is Mr. Trump's party. I don't have problems with partisanship if it's Mr. Trump's party. Reasonable Republicans, no problem. Do I have an obligation to serve everyone? Absolutely. Thank goodness we are adjusting our package to reflect the moment. We don't want to be more than the rest of the state, but we want to get every inch out of this legislative majority in this session. 45 days early voting happened when we last had the majority. We have to recognize the moment. And I'm surely plenty caffeinated. I both appreciate the sense of when you said strategic, Ms. Cunningham, I absolutely agree. Strategic is what the speaker said, restraint and focus, but in some areas, the speaker and this majority and this governor-elect have to be bold. Gun safety, other ideas. We have to do that because it's what led to this majority, and we need to use this majority to govern for the benefit of our people. So I'll decaffeinate, but bold is important. WOFA, Josh Kaplowitz, Kip Malinowski, and Beyond Arlington. I didn't do as much as they did, but they did it, and we have to use it to govern for Arlington values.
Thank you, Vice Chair DeFranti.
Sorry,
what?
I'm done. Over to someone else.
What brand of coffee are you taking? I need some. So, Mr. Spain.
Yeah, not that I'm wondering, but I have a cup of Cafe Bustelo every morning. That gets me going. But I don't know what you got, an extra shot of something. Look, I think, again, this package, to what we've stated, meets the moment, right? Something I learned many years ago out in my days in corporate was, move at the pace of need. And I think we are doing just that. I do want us to kind of reconsider or think about something as we go into next year, and it kind of ducktails into what we just did on anti-rent gouging. Because We made a decision here today. I think we could have made this decision perhaps a few days ago, perhaps a week ago. What I've heard even today, even though this is a regular hearing item and folks cannot come and speak, if my memory serves me right, last month when we did this, a shared out package, it was late at night, and maybe one or two people spoke on it. And then we told the public, okay, send us emails, come out and have meetings. Look, I would hope that, given what this package means, that we would have done more to provide opportunity, even in this moment, for the public to engage, because this is their legislative package. I get it. But in the fourth quarter, with 2 minutes left, we got a flurry of emails and phone calls about this one aspect, and I think that is because perhaps we didn't have the right level of engagement over the past 30 days, and we probably need to look at that moving forward and how we can address it when it comes to next year. But other than that, I'm very happy with this package, and to all what you said, the Vice Chair, I think we seized the moment with who's in office, and but keep in mind there's going to be countless other jurisdictions doing the same thing we are. So what success looks like, I guess, Brian, you and everyone else are going to be working behind off down there and making things happen for Arlington. But great job again, and thanks to the entire team.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. I see your light, Ms. Cunningham.
I just wanted to amplify that and concur. I think there have been a couple of places in the last couple of months where we've gotten uploads very, very late, and I think that's a shared responsibility on this dais. It's really, really important for building trust with the community, for giving space for fulsome input, that we hold as close as possible to our goals. And so I recommit on that, and just want to make sure on the legislative process, it is the Commonwealth's structure that is fast and furious. So I understand on this one we may have been a little delayed by that, but it's really important to me and really important to the members of our public that they can engage with timeliness, so that we need to make sure we're committed to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Let me say, first of all, on the process, the way this is structured is to, when we get to the work session with our delegation, to have as a complete legislative package as possible, and something that, we actually, it's an action of the board here that says, please help us realize the goals that are in this package. So we want to really not surprise me with new things, etc. So there is a reason why the public comment part of this and the public engagement part of this, which I agree could be far better organized, precedes the work session with our delegation. That doesn't mean that it cannot be in a different way, but there is a logic to the way it is done right now, and it's important for the effectiveness of that, especially when we are in a year where we want to achieve a lot. And the two things that my colleague, Ms. Cunningham, has pointed out, the returning local, allowing us to amend the housing ordinance and ask developers and people who create a lot of value added here in Arlington to carry a bigger, more adequate burden towards affordability is a huge goal. It has been, the holy grail for this board for almost 15 or more years. Same for local rule on trees, et cetera, et cetera. I want to dwell a little bit on the anti-rent gouging item, because this really reveals how Arlington aligns and actually drives the affordability agenda in the Commonwealth. There is a reason why we heard today in public testimony, Ms. Zare, and from advocates, also for others. I have also for the benefit of the general public, there is a different, rent gouging is a term of trade. It is legislation that that tries to manage and regulate the increase of rents. This is in juxtaposition, for example, to rent control, which is legislation that tries to cap rents or to define appropriate rental pricing, etc. So there are two very different toolboxes, and there are many variations inside each one. Why is it important in Arlington? Rents here, I mentioned before, since I joined this board, rents went up the average, 27.3% across the board, all the entire rental market. This year, since I got elected chair, rents are only 1.2% up. However, the average price per square foot is up 7%. Which is a very big flag because it indicates that renters are so squeezed that are trying to reduce their overall rent burden because it's just unbearable by moving to smaller but less expensive apartments. But this increased demand today makes smaller apartments more expensive. So people end up paying less rent in general, but for much less rented space. This is a vicious circle of paying more for less. This is really a problem. This explains how average apartment rents, where more of 65% of Arlingtonians live today, are almost 6% up from last year. While the price of bigger rentals is only 2.5. If you rent a townhome, for example, it's not so much. But 6% for apartments, almost twice the increase of other rentals. And add to this the fact that rent increases in Arlington and in Northern Virginia. We had yesterday a fantastic data download from the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. Rent increases significantly outpace purchase price increases, which demonstrates to Mr. Handler's public testimony that even starter home prices are so unaffordable that they are in fact completely unattainable. People who in a competitive market could pass from renting to owning are stuck and squeezed in an increasingly unaffordable rental market. So that's all to say that it matters to have a housing market with plenty of competitive options that meet different needs at different price points and are able to adapt to a changing economic environment. Having more housing choices, which is the policy of this board, through courageous housing policies, at the end saves people money, makes our housing market and our local economy more resilient, and Arlington a better place to live, play, and work. So we are a front-runner jurisdiction. To Vice Chair De Ferranti's comments and to my colleagues, Mr. Spain's comments, we are a front-runner jurisdiction to responding to the affordability crisis in Virginia. We go with our legislative packet, but also with showing that we do the policy work to make affordability actually work. It's not just about anti-rent gouging, it's about creating a system, a policy framework where affordability comes back and we have a more resilient and more competitive housing market. So thank you so much, Mr. Spain, for bringing this amendment. And thank you for all advocates who have worked hard to raise this flag and having us work harder on that. I'm also very much aware that there are two things that I will be going to Richmond this year. One is to go back for those who are completely excluded, even from our rental market today, those who earn 30% of the area median income or 40 or 50% area median, who have to work a lot more on that. And those who think about other policies, like, for example, the Yes in God's Backyard initiative, etc. This is for the individual board member to do. This but it aligns with the general values of Arlington's legislative packet. So with that, let's take a vote. Sorry for the long so, but I feel very, very strongly about that. So with that, let's take a vote on the motion of Ms. Cunningham, seconded by Vice Chair DeFerranti, to finalize and adopt the 2026 General Assembly legislative packet as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody. The motion carries 4-0. And congratulations, Mr. Este. You have now a document to run with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I may be a bit out of order. I know the motion is carried. I think you have a note from our.
Oh, yeah.
This
is
yes.
for after. Yeah. You're good, Brian.
Okay, I will do that. I will thank all the commissions after that. So, Mr. Clerk, the next item, please.
Yes, of course. Our next item on the agenda is item number 32, which is the fiscal impact analysis of the tentative agreements between the county and the Arlington Professional Firefighters and Paramedics International Association of Firefighters Local 2800, or IAFF.
You can go. Yeah. Or after all three.
So, Mr. Manager.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work.
Thank you, Mr.
behind
Chair.
this
This is the unfortunate part of the year where the county manager actually presents an item. And you have to listen to me, but I also have staff with me. First, what I wanted to do is thank the staff that's worked to get us to where we are today. I have Catherine Naylor with me, who's my Chief Labor Relations Officer, Marcy Foster and Tasha Sims from Human Resources, and then Emily Hughes, and back up by the DMF team. And also wanted to thank our fire chief and Deputy Chief Reeves, and then our police chief, and then sincerely wanted to thank our labor partners. It's not all sunshine and lollipops every time when we get together with them, but we have reached a tentative agreement on collective bargaining, and I'll give you an overview of the fiscal impact of that tentative agreement. Before I do that, though, I wanted to let you know that this tentative agreement has already been ratified by the respective unions, and when we go through these details, this will come back to you next month for you to take action in under the ordinance to determine whether you want to pass a good faith resolution to fund this. And so the presentation we have today is that. It's a presentation. If you have questions, we'd be happy to take them, but there's no action required by the county board. So with that, we can go to the slides. And a little bit of background for people who may not be fully familiar with the process. Back in 2021, the county board authorized and created an amended Chapter 6 of the Arlington County Civil Service Ordinance to allow employees to organize and collectively bargain in good faith over terms and conditions of employment. We've had 3 certified unions. 2 of those are involved in collective bargaining this time through. The first is the Arlington Coalition of Police, which represents approximately 290 police officers, corporals, sergeants, and lieutenants. And then we have the Arlington Professional Firefighters and Paramedics International Association of Firefighters Local 2800, which represents close to 350 sworn fire employees in various ranks. And we had our first collective bargaining agreement was executed in 2023, and that runs through June 30th of 2026. So we began the conversation over this past summer, and we've spent a lot of time, just to give you a sense of, we're going to give you, we have 3 slides. What I'm holding in my hand right here is the sum of all the work that was done. A lot of pages here and a lot of tentative agreements reached on a lot of provisions, but we're going to focus here is on the fiscal impact. And I'm going to go through the broad strokes on this. If you have specific questions about any of these items here, I'm going to we have a team here that actually sat in the room and can tell you everything that you would ever need to know about uniforms, holidays, allowances, and those types of things. But very generally, for the police, and working through that, you'll see in the fiscal 27 column there, a total fiscal impact of $5.3 million. Now that is meant to include all those items up above, the main one being wages. And as it was laid out in the report that is posted on the county's website, for our police department, this is a relatively large sum of money, as some will note, but it tries to meet the moment we're in right now, where we have a authorized level for the police department of 376 staff, but actually the board's funded that at 338. We currently have 265 staff filling that 338 positions, which is a vacancy rate somewhere between 15 and 20%. Now, the costs of the tentative agreement result in an average salary increase of 11.4%, with a significant increase in the starting salary up to $90,000, which I believe is warranted given the difficulty in hiring and the resulting high costs that we have seen year over year in overtime in our budget. And so that is the approach we're taking there, and you can see the other details there on costs, and happy to go into any detail you need on those points. Let's go to the next slide. We see the fire fiscal impact. The numbers are fairly similar there. The main reason that was motivating the proposal that we put across the table and we've reached a tentative agreement on is that our firefighters are behind the market on average about 12%. And so you will see, as it was laid out in the board report, there'll be various increases associated with the fire agreement, and that's average of about 10.7% salary increase. And happy to go through all those details. If I just speak to the fiscal impact more broadly, and then I'll turn it over to the board to see if you have any questions. To meet the total costs here of both agreements, which is $10.6 million in fiscal 27, that would be equivalent to, for each agreement, it's about 0.6 of a penny on our tax rate. So together it'd be about 1.22 cents if it was not shared with schools. It's also, that would require, if the board chose not to raise taxes, an equivalent close to a little bit over 1%. No, it's about 0.9% for each of those agreements. We'd have to look across county budgets to try to find those funds. I'm not recommending you take one approach or the other. I will, that will all be part of what I receive from you in guidance next month, and also is what I conclude in my proposed budget that I bring to you in February. But let me just conclude by saying we have, I think, a solid agreement, and I think that in both cases, this is sorely needed to address what are critical needs in staffing in two of our most important departments in the county that provide safety to our residents. Now, I zipped through a lot of material here. You've had the board report. We're happy to take any questions specifically on this. And again, you'll have an opportunity in December to go into more detail and express your views about the underlying agreement. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and everybody who has been working very hard on this and for a very long time, I should say, on both sides of this dice. Mr. Clerk, do we have public speakers on this?
We do indeed have one public speaker. Mr. Brian Lynch is with us here today.
Mr. Lynch?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman Carantonis, Vice Chair DeFerrante, and members of the board. My name is Brian Lynch, and it is my honor to represent the women and men of the Arlington Professional Firefighters and Paramedics Association. I'd like to thank the county manager and the county's negotiating team for their willingness to come to the table, work with us to bridge significant differences and come to an agreement. I would also like to thank our members for embracing the compromises we made on non-economic issues, as well as our desire for a multi-year wage deal by ratifying this agreement last month. I would also like to thank many members of the board for voicing their commitments over the years to funding agreements made in good faith. Without the commitment to bargaining good faith by all, this historic step forward would not be possible. As to the fiscal impact statement, we could quibble about the numbers, but we have found it is much more constructive to focus on what everyone can agree on. Our wages severely lag the region, making it difficult to recruit and obtain the firefighters needed to provide the level of protection this community has relied upon. This agreement helps to reduce that gap. We still have work to be done in the years ahead, where other jurisdictions are competing for firefighters while inflation shows no signs of slowing down. But this agreement puts all parties in a better position to meet those challenges, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of relationships. It is not a secret that in the past, the relationship between our Union County officials has been strained at times, but with the board's support of this agreement, we can make history. It will be the first time since 1975 that the county and its firefighters have been able to come together and agree on a path forward without arbitration or unilateral action, fulfilling the goal this board set when it made history, bringing collective bargaining back to Arlington in 2021. We ask for your support in funding this agreement to make this a stronger and safer community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Are there any other?
There are no further speakers.
Okay, then the discussion is with our board. As stated earlier, I believe that we will not take action on the tentative agreement today, but rather at our December meeting. So we can hold our deliberations and discussions if there is the discussion until that time. However, if there are clarifying questions right now, it is a good moment to field them so that we may have a response today. Are there any? Ms. Cunningham, I see your light.
This was first. You were first.
Or, yes. Well,
Whichever. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Ms. Cunningham, for we're sort of I'll do the dishes. No, I'll do the dishes. You know, we had it. So let me just a couple of items just to clarify. Can you help? I don't know whether this is for labor lead or for you, Mr. Schwartz. It's about the 12%. This, on average, I believe, if I read correctly, it's like an 11.7% increase. This gets us into that range of the top area of pay in the Northern Virginia region. Is that accurate? How does 11.7% compare to the 12% that you mentioned?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Tasha Sims to answer that question for you.
Those changes? Sorry about that. Those changes bring us in line with market. We'll need to be very mindful of what's going to be happening in the region in these coming years, because obviously there's a lot of collective bargaining going on in the region. But yes, this brings us into alignment.
Yeah, and Mr. Vice Chair, I just want to mention one thing, which is this is a one-year agreement on wages, and I can't predict anything other than the fact that when I go to regional meetings, my colleagues are giving me bad looks about this. But we may be back this time next year, and we will be back this time next year to see how we stand on the region. But this puts us at the head of the class for the moment.
Thank you both for the context. I have two very short comments, but I yield because you said clarifying questions. And so
clarifying questions. We will have deliberation at our December meeting.
I think I mostly have comments as well, but I'll hold them. The question I had is, can you repeat the level of vacancy in both police and fire, and then the dollars per household if we were to have to cover this with tax dollars?
So as I understand it, when the next class finishes in fire and they bring on board some of the lateral hires that are in the works, they will be almost fully staffed at the end of the year, the end of the calendar year. For police, let me get to those numbers. There are significant vacancies, as we've talked about. So the current functional staff is at a level of 265 FTEs compared to the authorized strength of 376 and the funded level of 338. So it's significant. They also have a class in training right now, so that will be slightly better in a few months, but not quite as good as fire's doing right now.
Great, and then I think at the bottom of each of your slides, you had you had 3 options for how to fund things. I caught the fire, but I didn't catch the police. Could you reiterate the $50 to $94 was the one for fire?
So going back to that slide, the alternatives include, as I noted, a potential tax rate increase for each of the agreements that comes to close to 0.6 cents, eliminating positions across the county, and I just want to be clear, that wouldn't be eliminating police or fire positions. I just want to be clear, that would be counterproductive in what we're trying to do here. That come to close for each of those agreements about 0.9% of our overall general fund spending. And that's another way of stating that for each of those agreements, that comes to about 35 funded staff positions across the organization. So those are the types of impacts that we would face. The other thing, and I want to mention, it's not included, and I didn't emphasize this as much, which is that there's I call it the backside of this, which is that to the extent that we're able to fill these vacancies, the overtime costs that we've been incurring, and you'll hear a lot more about that in our next presentation on closeout, will at least level off and start to come down.
Great.
Yeah.
Mr. Spain?
Since we'll be having additional discussion next month, I think my generalized clarifying question would be both to the county manager and the team. What is it that you were not able to solve? What problem that we may need to look at and you're going to consider down the road as it relates to this package? Is there something you wish we could have done but we're not able to do up until this moment?
Well, and I'm being quite serious about this. I wish we had more time in the sense of, if the board passes a good faith resolution next month and we've already, let people know what these wage rates are, people should understand that if that happens, it will not be as if on January 1st of 2026, the problem will be solved. We need more time, and I'm not asking the board to create more time. The other thing is that there are some issues which we've agreed in both agreements to sit down and over the next year set up some labor management committees to talk about, which have to do with potential changes. I'm not saying there will be changes, but how retirement is handled in public safety, because there's been a model in place for the last 50 years. And I think that the characteristics of both workforces have changed with a change in the way people consider their work-life balance. And in addition, looking at other models of providing service, including the number of shifts that are involved. So if we'd had more time, I think we would have gotten into that, but I feel comfortable that both agreements will allow the opportunity for those conversations to take place in a collegial fashion.
Great. And Mr. Chair, I will say I've heard, based on some response from the county manager to a question to Susan Cunningham, I would just say I'm a bit concerned now, but people should know that 35 FTEs or nearly a 10% cut across general fund departments is not where I'm leaning. For whatever it's worth for right now, and I know we'll talk about more in the coming months, and as we give you some direction, County Manager. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Mr. DeFerranti, last.
Sure. And I don't want to trespass on others who may want to make comment. I will make mine very, very succinctly. Mr. Lynch, I hope you're still on virtually. I can't quite tell. But I do want to say, you said it's no secret it hasn't always been easy, and that includes the board, and I'm mindful of that. I also heard you say that this is historic, and I do think it is historic for the local and this community that we made a choice, and we're looking at a brutal budget, but we're investing significantly. And to Mr. Spain's comments, our residents love our firefighters, and they won't want us to raise their taxes or cut services that we prize. And so this is setting us up for a whole lot of difficult conversations in January. But for me, your comment, this is historic, reflects, I think, all of the board's values with respect to the importance of addressing the 12% and valuing our people who on any day could save one of our lives.
Thank you, Mr. DeFerranti. Although I have to say this was part of the deliberation, and I believe that you will repeat all this in December. So
fair.
It's impossible to keep these in the box. I will try to keep mine. I just want to thank Mr. Lynch for the union's engagement in that. I always understand that a negotiation is very hard, especially under constrained conditions in almost everything from shifts and staffing and overtime accruing, etc. The fiscal consequences of that, we will discuss them on December, because they are, and we Arlingtonians need to be very clear-eyed about what these are. So, is there a motion on the floor for Vice Chair DeFerranti?
No.
There is no motion required.
No, I move that you thank us. And
Wait a minute. We have to close the public hearing on this item. Mr.
Keep it buttoned up. I'd recommend that you move to close the public hearing and carry further discussion to the December
this is my
board meeting
understanding.
on items 32 and 30.
And Mr. Chair, would you entertain additional comments? We did questions.
Okay, I will be magnanimous on this.
I appreciate your
But if you allow me,
magnanimosity.
yeah, if you allow me, let's make the motion, etc., and you can talk as closing statements. How about that? Right? Okay. Good. Okay, so I will do that by following the advice of our acting attorney, county attorney. I move that the county board close the public hearing for item 32, this one, and carry further discussion to the December county board meeting. Is there a second for that? Second. It's seconded by board member Spain. So any discussion? I'm not going to add anything. I saw Ms. Cunningham wanted to make a comment.
In addition to the thanks, which are implicit and have been said, I just want to share that I've had the distinct privilege to do several police ride-alongs as well as visit almost all of the stations. We have one more round next week. And I've heard directly from our staff just how tired they are with the mandatory holds, and I know you've heard it as well, but I want to share that with the community because a tired police officer, a tired firefighter who's done 3 shifts, or 2 shifts and is mandatory held is not good for them, and it's not good for our community. And so I know this is a really hard time to have this conversation, but I think it's always an important time to have the conversation of doing right by our firefighters and police professionals. In particular, I just want to highlight, and I've shared this with the manager, but lots of concern in both bodies about mid-career depth, retaining folks through mid-career. On the fire side, that's a compression issue, and you guys know it well. And on the police side, it's just, kind of how it's happened over time with retirements. So I'm really excited that we are taking this seriously. And the final piece I would say is, in light of the enhanced, expanded federal law enforcement presence in our community, which I think will continue to grow, along with the changing norms we've seen in their behaviors, it is absolutely critical to me, and I think to all of us, that we have the best trained, the most committed, and the most amazing public safety folks. And so I'm delighted that we're committing to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mrs. Payne.
I know we kind of went way off your initial, but let me just say this while we have the moment to both Randall Mason and to Brian Lynch, leaders of respected unions, police department and fire department, respectively. Look, when I got here in January, one of the first things I talked about was ensuring, as many of my colleagues have done over a while, that our public safety officials are taken care of. It's about morale, it's about quality of life, it's about pay. And so I am, the piece about historic, it does not negate me, and I followed the news as well before I got here, and I think we have come a long way as a collective, and thank you, County Manager, and thank to our entire team for getting us to this direction. I know it's tough, it's challenging, but people expect this, and I can't say how many times here around the government center and as I'm out in Arlington, folks in uniform come up to me now and say, thank you, County Board. Thank you, County Board. And that means a lot. And again, we have a lot of work to do, but more to follow next month, Mr. Chair. Thank you for a few moments.
Thank you. Colleagues, I will call the question after several infringements of the one thank you per board member rule. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? It carries unanimously. That means that we will continue this conversation, very positive conversation at our December meeting when we are going to make a final decision. Before we move on to item 33, Mr. Clerk, it came to my attention that there was an additional item from the consent agenda timely removed, and a resident has asked for a hearing on item number 6. We saw that late, so it was late for me to be aware of that at the moment that we moved, and that I moved the consent agenda to approve the consent agenda. It is a legitimate. It's a legitimate request, and it's an item that is according to the rules. Just the timing was not, or our electronic awareness of the timing was not perfect. Therefore, colleagues, if you allow, I want to move that the county board reconsider its vote to adopt the county manager's recommendations for items on the consent agenda, excluding pulled items 3 and 8, to reconsider including adoption of the county manager's recommendation for items 6, and secondly, in reconsidering the county board's vote to instead adopt the county manager's recommendations for items on the consent agenda, excluding pulled items 3, 6, and 8. It is seconded by Vice Chair De Ferranti. I don't believe there is any discussion of that. If there is, let me know. If not, please all in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously, so the consent agenda is now adopted except for the items 3, 6, and 8, which we will hear on Tuesday, not before 6 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Clerk, can we then move to the next regular agenda item?
Yes, of course. The next item on our agenda today is the second fiscal impact analysis of the tentative agreements between the county and the Arlington County Coalition of Police.
Thank you. Like before, the board will receive these presentations and conduct hearings on the fiscal impact analysis on this tentative agreement at our December meeting. So the floor is yours, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I want to clarify one thing, which is we did presentations on both of the items.
Yes.
And I don't have an additional presentation to make, so it's back to you for any legislative action.
So colleagues, if you have additional praise, the clock is reset for...
And just making sure there are no speakers on this.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is the public hearing of item number 33,
Yes,
and at this
I'm
point,
sorry
I can
about
verify
that.
that there are
Yes.
no public speakers on this item.
Do we
but-
have?
No. You just said.
Okay, we don't. With my apologies, we then can move on with a motion on closing the public hearing, except if there are comments. Mr. DeFerranti.
Move to close the public hearing, as you indicated, and then continue further discussion with the board to next month.
Second.
And it's seconded by Board Member Spain. Is there any discussion? No? Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. There are no objections. Then the next item, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, of course. The next item on the agenda is the county manager's presentation of the financial results and closeout for the fiscal year ending in June 30th of 2025.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, it pains me to pass this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I did want to let you know that what we're doing today is, again, we're making a presentation. The public hearing on this will be on Tuesday.
Right.
There's a lot of information included here. There always is a closeout. This year, it's a little bit more complicated, a little less optimistic, and we're going to be talking about not only closeout for fiscal 25, but an update on where we are in fiscal 26, and then the outlook for fiscal 27. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Budget Director, Richard Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Okay, so as we close out fiscal year 2025, we experienced a historically close budget to actual conclusion. As you can see from the graph on the right, we ended the year with only $1.8 million in discretionary funding available. With that, the manager has only two recommendations for the discretionary funding this year. First, allocate approximately $275,000 toward the Safe Havens program. This is a program which provides for a supervised visitation and exchange program, which helps children maintain essential contact with their parents who used violence in the home while keeping the victim and parent safe through sight and sound isolation. A federal grant, as anticipated, was not received in fiscal year 26, and it is important to continue this program. And secondly, the manager recommends setting the remaining balance toward anticipated compensation and benefit overages in this fiscal year. For example, we are seeing significant cost increases in healthcare, and as we will discuss later in this presentation, we expect to be significantly over budget in this area in FY26. I should also note that in typical years, available funding provided from closeout will go toward one-time items like capital, affordable housing program, and other unplanned one-time priorities. This year, however, one-time funds will not be available as we begin planning for fiscal year 27.
As Richard mentioned, expenditures for FY25 were historically close to budget. Adjusting for grant funds and restricted and incomplete projects, county departments ended the fiscal year with $0.6 million in expenditure savings, or approximately 0.1% of the FY 2025 department operating budgets. For comparison, in FY24, the county ended the fiscal year with $13.4 million in expenditure savings, or approximately 1.8% of the FY24 department operating budgets, after adjusting for grant funds and restricted and incomplete projects. Healthcare expenses exceeded budget in FY 2025 by $7.7 million due to increasing costs and high-cost claims. Cost increases have been partially driven by the increased use of a variety of weight loss drugs and utilization of in vitro fertilization, while the plans have also seen high-cost claims for the treatment of cancer. The county is considering plan design changes to address the cost increases, as well as monitoring market trends. Other department expense drivers include public safety overtime, which resulted in public safety agencies exceeding their personnel budgets by a total of $8 million. Note that vacancy savings did cover a portion of their overtime costs in FY25. Other cost drivers for personnel included unused leave payouts and compression pay.
On the revenue side, by fiscal year end of 2025, final revenues, excluding unbudgeted items like Gatsby and AHIF, were 0.2% or $2.7 million lower than revised June projections. Of this, final tax revenues, which make up about 83% of our general fund revenues, were 0.4% or $4.7 million higher than June revised projections. The table on the left-hand side of this slide shows percentage variance from each of the different tax types. With the exception of the other tax category at the bottom, all tax types had a variance of less than 1%. On the right-hand side of this slide, non-tax revenues were 4.5% or $13.7 million higher than the revised projections. However, after you adjust for unbudgeted items like Gatsby and AHIF, non-tax revenues were 2.5% or $7.5 million lower than revised June projections. The main drivers of these non-tax revenues was in land use and permit-related fees and fines, which were below budget due to lower site plan and parking ticket revenues, which were partially offset by higher photo speed and red light fines. For investment income, interest income came in above budget, primarily due to unbudgeted unrealized gains, which are non-cash earnings. On the charges for services, they were above budget due to increased parking meter and DHS charges revenue, partially offset by lower art bus fare and increased DPR fee reductions. On the state revenue side, they were below budget due to unspent grant funds, primarily in DES and DHS, which will be carried over into fiscal year 26. And lastly, on the federal revenues, they were below budget due to a DES terminated grant and DES unspent grant funds that will also be carried over into fiscal year 26.
Okay, so before I walk through this slide, I failed to introduce my colleagues that are presenting today. So as you heard from Emily Hughes, the Deputy Budget Director, and Danielle Bush is our guru on the revenue side, our revenue analyst, so apologize for that. Okay, so the next three slides have a little more detail, but I wanted to give a sense of the various buckets of allocated or restricted funds that make up the total fund balance. So at the end of FY25, we had just over $360 million in remaining funds, and this is in the general fund. And as you can see in the upper left, we first set aside our reserves and then various restricted and previously allocated funds. What remains in the lower left boxes is only the $1.8 million in discretionary funding, which is recommended to be set aside for pressures in this fiscal year, leaving a recommendation of no one-time funds for the development of the FY27 budget from the closeout of FY25. Getting into a little more detail on the various restrictions of the FY25 fund balance, you can see on the left the 3 reserves the county has, which is key to the county's AAA bond rating and fundamental financial health. These reserves total $134.6 million and account for over 37% of the total fund balance. In the center shows funds which the county holds for a variety of restricted purposes, for example, donations made to library or parks, as well as other non-spendable or restricted monies like seized assets and grant funding. And then on the right, you can see the monies which are associated with the Affordable Housing Investment Fund. This year, it totals almost $111 million and is composed of both monies already allocated to projects by board action and an unallocated portion which has not yet been assigned to projects, is mostly planned for anticipated upcoming projects. And in addition, there are some remaining federal home funds which are available for future projects as well. Continuing with the various allocations of fund balance, we have a portion which the board already appropriated as a part of the FY26 budget. When the board adopted the budget last April, there were projected savings and additional revenue anticipated above projected in the spring. The board allocated these anticipated funds in a number of ways. For example, funding various capital needs, buying down outstanding debt of the low-income Barcroft apartments, and investments in nonprofit partners and other community priorities. Next, we have the allocations to fund the Arlington County schools. Based on our principles of revenue sharing, schools is entitled to retain their expenditure savings from this past fiscal year, and they share in any tax revenue above budget. So for FY 2025, they had $20 million in expense savings and will receive $1.8 million in excess tax revenue above budget. And then finally, there are various capital projects funded with short-term financing, and these funds need to be carried over to pay the debt service on the existing and planned projects. And finally, we have a number of projects which were funded and started in the last fiscal year, which were incomplete as of June 30th. Some of these projects may cover multiple years, like community planning processes, or local monies funding grants which span multiple years. Carryover of these funds will allow for the completion of these projects, many of which are completed or almost complete as of today. And with that, I will pause our summary of the FY25 budget before we move into 26. Question? Do we want to take any questions at the end or keep going?
If colleagues, I think it's better to do that altogether, except I saw Mr. Ferrand. Okay. Okay. Yes, please proceed.
So when we look at FY 2026, you'll hear a lot of the same themes that we went through with what the expense pressures were in FY 25. We continue to closely monitor department spending, including close monitoring of personnel costs. Other program areas of concern that we are monitoring are the sheriff medical transition, housing grants and eviction prevention, and cost increases in utilities. Costs for healthcare continue to trend high in FY 26, more closely monitoring, but do anticipate that expenses will exceed the premiums. Then there are the expected federal impacts from the shutdown, the budget and reconciliation bills, and tariffs that could require resources from the county to maintain services.
On the fiscal year 26 revenue side. So as you know, local taxes make up about 83% of our general fund revenue. The table that you see on the left-hand side shows our fiscal year 26 adopted tax revenue budgets compared to where we landed for fiscal year 25 tax revenue actuals that we just went over. As you will see, some of the consumption taxes, particularly TOT, will require substantial growth to reach our adopted budget target. As you remember, the adopted budget was developed before we knew the true impact of the federal administration would have on our economy and tax revenues. We are continuing to closely monitor these revenues as they come in. Additionally, on the right-hand side of the slide, there are some additional uncertainties and pressures that we are also monitoring. These include real estate assessment growth. As we saw with calendar year 24 assessment values, commercial office values continue to decline. This leads to an increased risk of assessment appeals and less one-time funds in fiscal year 26. Business license tax BPOL revenues. This is our third largest revenue source, and continued high unemployment rates may reduce consumer spending and lead to a potential contraction of the business environment, leading to less gross receipts and lower tax base for our BPOL revenues. These revenues do not come in until February and March due to the March 1st filing deadline. As pointed out when we were looking at the tax table, consumption taxes are also seeing declines or slower growth compared to the same month in the prior year. And lastly, we are continuing to track any state or federal revenue changes.
So we've discussed some of the challenges anticipated for this fiscal year, and the board did set aside $11 million at budget adoption to stabilize the economic uncertainty, and also instructed the manager to add an additional $500,000 in Metro savings if after the county budget was adopted. And the county's Metro obligation was if it was less than what they adopted, and it was, so adding the $500,000 to this reserve. So with the continued economic pressures, the board may consider using or not using these funds to make up for revenue losses, both to county tax revenues or federal funds. This could include both the county and the schools, and there's anticipated a significant funding increase in FY 2027 for Metro, and there are some priority programs impacted by to regional economic stress and the general increased demand for certain services. So at the bottom of the slide, you can see some examples of how the board might want to prioritize needs in the community as we move through this fiscal year and next. So as we move through this fiscal year, we'll have to consider the various levers available to mitigate the slowing revenue environment, uncertainty of federal funding, and the continued cost pressures discussed earlier. Obviously, we have the stabilization reserve I was just mentioning, but there are other examples of how we might address the budgetary issue, including deferring or canceling capital projects, enacting a hiring freeze or staff furloughs, delaying our bond sale, and potentially delaying the buy down of the debt for Barcroft, which the board included in the FY26 budget last spring. All these choices are difficult, and we will continue to monitor the fiscal situation throughout the fiscal year.
Moving on to the fiscal year 27 planning side. You'll hear much of the same trends as we've talked about in fiscal year 26. So due to the increased risk and uncertainty in the current economic environment, DMF has been tracking various economic indicators. First, for unemployment, as you know, Arlington's unemployment rate remains high. August unemployment rate was 3.5%. Compared to the same month last year, it was 2.5%. For the housing market, the average home sold price and the number of units sold is continuing to see growth at this time. However, we are continuing to track this in case anything changes. For mortgage rates, the 30-year mortgage rate is currently around 6.2%, which is a decline to the 7% it had been hovering around since the beginning of the year. Regional CPI for the month of September was 2.5%, which has gone up in recent months from the low of 1.9% that we saw in May 2025. Office vacancy, as you know, continues to remain a concern. For 2025 Q3, it was at 23.4%. And for multifamily rent, it's still strong, but beginning to show signs of a plateau, potentially due to the labor issues and economic uncertainty that we're seeing in the area currently. And again, as I've mentioned, on consumption taxes, we're continuing to see slower growth or decreases compared to the prior year in the same month. And lastly, as we've mentioned, the county, as well as other outside organizations, current and future federal funding is uncertain and at any point could require a need for additional resources.
So for FY27 and beyond, we face many of the same stressors as in FY26 and 25, but there are also some other issues looming. For healthcare, we anticipate premium increases, but we're also considering changes in coverage. There are the fiscal impacts from the new collective bargaining agreements that we just spoke about in the last items, as well as costs for non-bargaining pay. In recent years, some programs have also been funded with one-time funding, and funding will need to be considered for FY27, including for items like teens and climate initiatives. WMATA funding needs could be significant in FY27 as well, as their funding needs spike. Even with use of balances to cover some of the cost increases, the general fund subsidy will still be significant. Schools is facing some budget challenges as well, and some county programs are growing, including housing and human services programs. And we do have impacts from federal changes that will hit FY27 as well, including the loss of $1 million of UASI inverse funding and a reduction in SNAP revenue due to the error rate adjustment.
For fiscal year 27 revenues, our current revenue forecast scenario indicates that tax revenues could be down to up less than 1% compared to fiscal year 26 adopted levels. For real estate assessment, residential single family is projected to grow similarly to last year. Condominiums are anticipated to remain stable from last year. Commercial values are anticipated to decrease, driven, as you know, primarily by a projected decline in the office market. As a reference, revenues from our office assessments make up about 12% of our total tax revenues, and then the tax revenues are about 83% of our total general fund revenues. Other commercial properties, to include general commercial, hotels, and apartments, are anticipated to range from flat to modest growth. For our other large tax revenue sources, personal property, we're projecting that vehicles will maintain their value. For BPOL, we are anticipating revenues to be flat to down compared to 26 adopted levels, again due to existing high unemployment rates that we are seeing and the potential to shrink our tax base. Continued concerns for consumption taxes, as I've mentioned, have realized slower growth and declines. Fees and charges for services revenues are anticipated to grow modestly in order to keep pace with service delivery costs. Interest income is still anticipated to be significant. However, it is anticipated to be lower in fiscal year 27 due to rate changes and portfolio balances. And lastly, state and federal revenues are projected to remain relatively flat. As we've talked about, there's an increased risk associated with these funding sources. And then to start off this slide, for the revenue side on the left-hand side, as we've discussed on the previous slide, with minimal to no growth on the tax revenue side, driven by a declining commercial market and pressure on the consumption and BPOL taxes, along with lower interest income, less one-time funding, and other uncertainties in the regional market, we're anticipating total ongoing revenues to decline or remain relatively flat with fiscal year 26 adopted revenue levels.
And then if you look at the right-hand side of the slide, it's summarizing the incremental cost increases for the areas that I had mentioned earlier. So for public safety, collective bargaining, as we heard earlier, an impact of about $10.6 million. There are going to be impacts for WMATA. Employee compensation for non-bargaining to keep pace with inflation would be a 3% increase, which would cost $6.6 million. When you look at the CPIW rates that have been hovering around 2.8, 2.9%, which is what we try to tag to. Healthcare costs, again, significant premium increases and coverage changes to address cost growth, and then federal impacts of at least $2 million that we know about. So if you take all these things together with the revenue that Danielle talked about, we're looking at a preliminary funding gap of 35 to 45 million in FY27.
Okay, and give you some heads up on what our early projections for the schools may be this next fiscal year. Similar to the county, the schools face their own challenges this next fiscal year. As we discussed about the slowing of revenue growth, the schools will also see lower revenue growth as the county and the schools share in the local tax revenue receipts. In addition, schools is working through their own labor negotiations, which may increase costs. And like everyone else, they are being impacted by the significant increases in the healthcare area. Though not significantly impacted yet, the schools may also see some risk of loss of federal funding. Early estimates are that schools may have a budgetary gap of single-digit millions, significantly less than we're talking about on the county side at this point in time. And so as Emily noted on an earlier slide, the county is facing a $35 to $45 million gap excluding the large potential metro bill and any additional school needs over the existing revenue sharing agreement. I talked about levers that we have in FY26 earlier to mitigate our pressures. This slide highlights some of the additional choices we have as we begin to prepare the FY27 budget. We have increasing revenue is always an option. There are a number of tax sources which the county has the flexibility to increase, and maybe these rates are increased to fund certain commitments like collective bargaining costs. Obviously, we will continue to explore new revenue streams and continue our efforts in collecting revenue owed to the county. And then on the expenditure side, we may need to significantly reduce programs. You will recall we reduced funding to various programs in the FY26 adopted budget. And the manager listed a number of other expense reductions not taken in the proposed budget last year. We will have to consider them as we plan for FY27. And then the lower part of this slide illustrates a number of examples that we may consider. Okay, I mentioned the tax sources that we have some flexibility to adjust on the prior slide. This slide shows some incremental impacts of adjusting various tax rates. 1 penny on the real estate tax rate generates $9.4 million in total revenue, and if we shared with schools, the county would retain $5 million. I should note that a 1 cent increase on the tax rate impacts homeowners on average approximately $85. 1 penny applied to the business license taxes generate $2.1 million in total, and increasing the vehicle personal property tax rate by 25 cents generates $3.6 million. And finally, the meals tax, which was increased this fiscal year from 4% to 5%, the county has the authority to increase the total meals tax to 6%. If raised to 6%, it would increase revenue by approximately $13.5 million.
Okay, so last slide here. We are right now in November of 2025. As I mentioned earlier, at Tuesday's meeting, recess meeting, the board will consider the actions before you, which are the closeout of fiscal 2025. We've given you the 2027 outlook. Next month, as we talked about in the previous board agenda items, you'll be addressing the collective bargaining agreements, and we'll also receive guidance from you. And that is a question of how specific you want to be based on the information you received. Real estate information is sent out to all property owners in January. I'll be coming before you in February with a proposed budget, and then we have a pretty intense, close to 60-day period where we walk through most of the proposals. So that concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions that you might have on this material. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Colleagues, thank you. Even if you're bearing a really challenging, this is a very challenging presentation, both parts of it, and I think a lot of food for thought for everybody until next Tuesday. We will be carrying over this public hearing and discussion. Are there any immediate clarifying questions, Vice Chair Ferranti?
And this is a clarifying question. This is about, we had some email traffic, and Barcroft, the advanced payment prepaying, the $5 million that we prepay is 2026. Is that $5 million in prepayment in the $35 to $45 million budget broad estimate, keeping in mind that you haven't brought fiscal year 27's budget to us? Right. And you may not know. I mean,
well, so that $5 million was set aside in fiscal 26. We have not spent that money. Our intent is to wait as long as possible until the fiscal year. So assuming the amount of revenue on an ongoing basis, since those were one-time funds, that's not part of that 35 to 45 calculation. So if you were to decide today to take that $5 million and spend it on something else, it still would leave the gap at 35 to 45 million.
Got that. And you haven't gotten to the stage of planning for yet whether you would consider $5 million in prepayment in fiscal '27, right?
No, and I know if you have more detailed questions on that, Jason Fries I think he's on the line here, who can talk to you a little bit about the kinds of factors we weigh about if and when we should prepay. So Jason, if you want to weigh in on that.
I don't need I'm just trying to think forward. I don't need a final answer, but Jason has appeared, and so interested in the wisdom.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, so typically what we do is, we try to make a prepayment as early as possible in a fiscal year when we get those funds in. So in this fiscal year, given that we had been approved for the $5 million, we would have made it on July 1 or around that time, just to avoid interest charges, right? So we're currently incurring about 5% interest on the line of credit that we have for Barcroft. So that would be generally when we make the pay down now, given that we've had these financial difficulties and headwinds, and we've seen them coming for some time, we have held off on that payment. So that has been, in a holding pattern up until today. So depending on what the board chooses, once we get the go-ahead to move forward, we would pay that down immediately just to avoid any future incurrence of interest, even though it's $5 million, $250,000 a year of interest just in that portion. So that's generally what we're doing. Rates are starting to trend down, so that's a good thing. But anything we can pay down of the principal value, we try to make it immediately.
Great. Count me as one who respects the desire not to have interest, but is not interested in prepaying Barcroft in fiscal '26 or fiscal '27. I will want to know the score that you just alluded to, the cost that you just alluded to, Mr. Fries, but given the challenges that we're facing, that's my 2 cents. I hope that's okay.
I'm sure that we will be burdening you with a lot of scoring requests because I believe that it's a mix of more than one. Any other clarifying questions? Susan.
The only clarifying questions, assuming we're going to have closing statements as well, is slide 21 on the revenue share. I wasn't quite tracking. It seemed like the shared revenue was high, like higher than 50% on a couple.
Can you pull the slide deck up? I just don't have the numbers on my. Okay, and I apologize. Which?
I think it was page 21.
Oh, what's the? Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So that shows the shared with schools.
Correct.
The first one makes sense to me. The others seem like they're possibly above 50%. Can you do the math for me? And we can do it offline too, but it seemed confusing.
Our share should be more than 50%. 53. The schools receive.
So the shared amount is our portion. Okay, got it. I was just reading it as that was the school's portion, and I was confused. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mrs. Payne.
Yes, I just want to thank everyone, all these statisticians and mathematicians and everyone else under the sun for doing this robust work. I have received an inquiry about, and it's gonna be with our closeout on 2025, right? Just so I can be clear, the question came to me about how can we improve perhaps some level of transparency for the public and even to our Fiscal Affairs Committee and timeliness of kind of like close out in this report. I think it's only been a few days since this report has been made public for closeout materials. And then honestly, also looking at perhaps more of a multi-year over under budget trend. I went and looked back at police and fire, right? Closing out FY 2025, around $5.2 million in overtime, fire, police, sheriff, a host of things. That's a good bit of money. Any thoughts about how we can do this perhaps a bit earlier in the process to give the public time and even our Fiscal Affairs Committee perhaps time to look in and make recommendations before it comes to the board on a closeout?
Yeah, let me start with that, and I'll welcome additional comments from Richard or Maria or Emily or Danielle. if you go back and look over the last 10 or 15 years, it has varied when we come to you on closeout. Sometimes it's October, sometimes it's November. And it's always our preference to come earlier rather than later. I don't want to minimize the degree to which we have a lot of information that we need to compile. If we came to you in October this year, we weren't quite finished with our work. So, I mean, I'm going to say this, and I'm probably wrong. You know, the best time probably to come to you would be October 30th. We're sort of not quite wrapped up with everything, but there's a lot of things. And so I know Richard meets with Fiscal Affairs. They meet at least monthly, if not more often. We try to give them some insight on that. But I would say it's absolutely a fair comment to say this material was posted about a week ago, and it covers a huge amount of information. It's our preference to have more time than less time, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. And I'll let Richard or Maria or Emily talk about all the different kinds of information that we need to tie so that we have it accurate.
Right. We're somewhat constrained on the timetable by the audit that's going on of the books of the last fiscal year. We in the county have a 45-day accrual of revenues that as they come in, even past July. So we don't, you know, the books don't really even close until late September, early October, as they're finalizing with the auditor. So, and then we have to pull everything together and segregate funds and make sure we're accounting properly for grant monies and everything. So it does constrain us a little bit in terms of the timing of having a final closeout report that's consistent with the audited report. As the manager said, I spend quality time with Fiscal Affairs. I met with them on Thursday, and we went over this material. Okay. I don't know if they'll have the opportunity to provide the board some feedback on closeout specifically, but they're ready to give you additional opinions and guidance as you work in December through the guidance that you'll give to the manager. I think they'll have some specific feedback for you coming up in the next month.
That's good to know, and something I'll probably just, you can give this to me later, kind of pull me to the side and educate me a little bit more. Thank you, County Manager, for you said this goes back 20 some odd years, but when it comes to the closeout funds and what are truly discretionary versus what's committed, I just want to kind of get more savvy on that at the end of the day and have a understanding, but whatever you can provide later on to me on that. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Spain. By the way, I have to tell you that on the regional and across regional, most of our colleagues were at VACO as well. We were, exchanging notes about how the last fiscal year, this was, a hot topic of conversation. How did your fiscal year close? And I had to say, I mean, most of our colleagues had almost the same timeline than we have. I mean, it's not different. There are some who like to have more of a set of early indicators, something like, just flagging issues. I mean, for us, there's a very big issue to flag, very easy. There is no money for closeout effectively, and this is a huge problem. This is a unique situation. I mean, I had the opportunity to talk with county board members who served, our predecessors who served in the 80s. I asked them, do you remember when it was the last time that was absolutely, that we landed on budget flat? And they couldn't. So that gives us a little bit the order of magnitude of the challenge here. I have one clarifying question. It's really for my edification. It's a little bit kind of an obscure discussion. So on slide 3, we say that we were hit by a 7.7 million over budget on healthcare costs. Further down, there is a reserve for self-insurance. That's about 9 million. How do these two correlate? So when is something that we pay from the general fund, if healthcare costs for whatever reason hit us hard, the employer part of that, and how do we deplete the self-insurance, or is that not at all connected?
So, by policy, the self-insurance reserve is for more one-time issues that we are hit with so that we can meet the needs, make the payouts. So there was an FLSA payment a few years ago that was part of a settlement, and we used the reserve for that. What we're dealing with in the health insurance here now is kind of a multi-year trend, right? We've been seeing the costs increase. So we didn't feel like that was an appropriate use of that reserve for FY25 shortfalls. Now, we could look to it in the future, especially as we start making those premium increases and we're trying to catch up with those expenses. But we would view it more of a case where if you had some, astronomical high-cost claims that were really unanticipated, weren't in line with trending, that might be when you would go to that reserve. Does that make sense?
It does. It just gives me just a further point to think about, because right now health insurance is something, if I ask people around, what is your first concern? Actually, intuitively, the first thing that they say, health insurance. Health insurance is a huge, huge, huge cost problem. And I see managers and your colleagues around in the region saying, "Oh my God, I don't know what's coming," and so I begin to. I mean, that shapes my thinking that this is not anymore one time. So we call it in Greek. They say we were beyond the mark. We didn't hit the mark on budget on health, but it's a systemic evolution towards something that we have to deal with in a different way. Okay. Thank you. So, colleagues, we have no action on this item. This time, Mark Schwartz is right. Until Tuesday, though. Until Tuesday. So at our recess meeting, we will consider and discuss the item prior to taking a final vote on a closeout, because we have still $1.8 million there that we need to decide what to do with them from last fiscal year 25. And that includes a hearing, which means that we look forward to hearing from everyone on Tuesday on this. Mr. Kushner, do we have any other items?
There are no further items.
Not before the board. So, two things. First of all, I omitted to thank our commissions for their input to the legislative packet, the legislative agenda work this year. I'm sorry about that. I'm doing that now publicly. And the board will be recessed until Tuesday, November 18th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m., at which time we will conduct. Oh, Mr. Spain.
Are you about to close on? I was just going to make another comment.
You can.
Yeah. We had a lot of conversations about public safety. We talked a little bit about pay. We talked about what's going on with the unions and all that good stuff. But I just want to also raise up public safety is large, and not forget that we have deputies here in the room, and we have deputies in our across who are also looking at us in this moment, and just want them to know that we hear you as well. Perhaps more to follow, but thank you for your service and thank you for keeping us safe in this room. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We definitely appreciate your presence here, and you hear how, on our side, how we have to make the financial framework, and we just got started on a long way to the budget for next year. So, thanking everybody. The board will be recessed after a gavel out until Tuesday, November 18th at 1:30 p.m. We will conduct our used closed session then. We will make appointments, and we will hear awards, recognition, proclamations. And beginning no earlier than 6 p.m., we will hear our pulled agenda items, the three agenda items, I believe 3, 6, and 8, followed by 2 additional regular hearing items. Testimony and final discussion on the item we just heard, 34, closeout funds, and an initial hearing on the proposed advisory panel to examine Arlington's form of government. That's item 35. These are on the regular agenda at beginning no earlier than 6 p.m. on Tuesday. So we look forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you. Well, with that, we are recessed. The long close is